and that person has the authority to act immediately without going up the chain of command for sign-off. He also has the oversight perspective and knowledge of traffic safety issues to be able to work with the chief in devising plans for traffic safety that may include other divisions of the department, and is the person with the authority and credibility that residents and neighborhood organizations can turn to know that there would be a quick and effective response to problems and concerns identified in the community. He or she is also the person with the authority and credibility that town departments and boards and commissions, such as the Transportation Board or a school building committee, like the Pierce Building Committee that I co-chair, can contact to respond immediately to conditions that cause or may cause traffic accidents or other issues that need an immediate fix, and to proactively work with and coordinate a response to concerns they have identified that could impact traffic safety in the future. This person is also the person with authority and credibility that other divisions and police department personnel can contact for direction and solutions to traffic safety issues that they encounter in their work. And finally, the deputy superintendent would be an essential partner in efforts such as Vision Zero and other efforts to implement systemic changes needed to substantially reduce or eliminate the risk of traffic accidents. In the absence of a deputy superintendent, the above may occur, but haphazardly and slowly, and at the risk of many potentially deadly situations not being adequately addressed before it's too late. The vacancy in that position, I think, can be seen as a potential threat to the safety of our residents. The chief has identified in my opinion, highly qualified person for that position, and I see no reason to deny the chief's request. And I suggest it be acted upon quickly without any further delay. Thank you.
Thanks, Bernard. Miriam?
Thank you, Raul. So for those of you who don't know, I received my booster last Tuesday and tested positive for COVID on Thursday. This is a case of bad timing. I was likely already exposed at the time of my booster, and I have been isolating at home. Yes, this is day 7 while I recover. And I have a few comments to make in regard to that that are highly pertinent to our conversation later tonight. First, I'm fully vaccinated and generally healthy, and COVID laid me up for days. I'm still quite fatigued and not fully recovered. I don't even want to think about how sick I would have been had I not been vaccinated. I did not have to go to the ER or be hospitalized or worse. And for this, I 1,000% credit being vaccinated. Thank you to my friends, neighbors, and teammates from work and who have sent food, bubble bath, books, eel, and sake. Yes, I have those kinds of friends, and many good wishes. I appreciate all of the support and help. It really does take a village. So please check in on your friends and neighbors. I will do my best to stick it out for the full meeting. If you see me turn off my screen, I'm still here listening, but may have had to lay down. If I have to leave, I'll be sure to let Raul know. With that said, please get vaccinated, including your booster. The CDC now recommends the booster for anyone over the age of 16. And luckily, Brookline has 2 clinics coming up for the 5+ age group, Wednesday, December 29th from 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. and Tuesday, January 4th from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m., both at Florida Rough and Ridley. You do have to register ahead of time, and I'm going to drop that link in the chat right now. Please share widely.
Thanks, Miriam. I know I speak for the whole board when we say that we're glad you're on the mend and wish you a full recovery. And I think, your story obviously illustrates the dangers that are still out there, and we'll be discussing that in just a bit. So thanks, Miriam. John?
Thanks very much. And yes, Miriam, it's good to know you've recovered this far, and speedy recovery the rest of the way. First, I want to say, Bernard, I did not know the news about Dan, and I am so sorry to hear that news. Dan was such a great friend to Brookline, but more particularly to Brookline Recreation and to all of the people over decades, I think I'm safe in saying, who benefited from Dan's participation in building and keeping those programs excellent and available to everyone in Brookline. He was a great contributor to the town, and it's a shock to learn that he passed away. I also wanted to say just a word of recognition or two. very well deserved, to our own, on behalf of our own Brookline Fire Department. So they've had quite a week. They were at one point in the week earlier participating along with the Brookline Police in collecting toys for tots, which is always one of their favorite things to do. And even more, favorite thing to do is to deliver them, which they did to the school early childhood education center. And that was also a lot of a very enjoyable experience for both them and the police department. And then they sort of paused to recognize the retirement of one of their veteran members, Deputy Chief Dan Carroll, retiring from as of December 13th. They wish him, as I do, a long and healthy retirement after 37 years of service to the town of Brookline. But then came the real sort of hard part of the week, which they rose to the occasion beautifully. And that was the fire on Corey Road at the once was a business with music studio, dance studio, and other studios as well. And I learned via the, as I call him, the indispensable Ken Liss, a local historian, that this building has quite an interesting history going back to when it was a stables as part of the Evan Jordan estate. Evan Jordan, the founder of Jordan Marsh, who had a considerable estate in Brookline along with horse stables. One thing led to another over the years, and it became the business place for these music studios, dance studios, and so on, and making a very vital contribution to Brookline and to Boston. And the people who went there, I was really pleasantly surprised to learn from my son when we were visiting that family in Oak Park, Illinois over the weekend. And I mentioned the fire to him, which we experienced on the way to the airport. And he said, I once, rehearsed with a band there. He was, a bit of and he would admit an amateur guitarist, but like a lot of other amateur guitarists in his teenage years, he got together with some others for a band rehearsal once or twice. But that studio was a significant loss. Brookline Fire Department played a significant part through the mutual aid program. It actually occurred right over the line in Boston, but Engine 3 was there from 4:30 in the morning on until everything was taken care of. And so, hats off to the Brookline Fire Department for the kind of job they do on a routine basis. But every now and then you got to sort of show some respect because this was a week where they came through in so many different ways, and we're lucky to have them.
Indeed. Thanks, John. Bernard?
Yeah, I wanted to add and thank Miriam for telling us about her unfortunate situation with COVID. But it really does sort of tell us something that's very important, and that is that those of us who've been fully vaccinated and boosted still have to be careful. Now, Miriam, because she's a doctor, is not really able to do that, like some of the rest of us maybe can. But we're entering the holiday season, and everyone wants to get together with friends and family. But it's really, really important that even if you're fully vaccinated, you be very, very careful. This is a scary situation with the Omicron virus or variant, even though it's maybe not as bad as the Delta, but still, no one wants to get sick with any type of COVID virus, even the common cold. You don't want if you can avoid it, and this is way worse than that. So I think it's important, what Miriam said in terms of giving us, telling us, how important it is to just be careful, no matter what your vaccination situation is.
Thanks, Bernard. I'm getting my booster on Monday. Miriam, do you have your hands up?
I just want to clarify that I was not protected by my booster shot at the time that I was.
All right.
Because what I really want is for people to get their booster shot. I don't want people to think, oh, look, she got it. Get your booster. Go get boosted. Get vaccinated. Wear masks. Yes, all of that. Thank you.
Quick update from me before we get into a longer update around COVID discussion. I'll say this Sunday I had the opportunity to be in community with Women Thriving over at Egmont, and they were doing a coat drive, and just the kind of outpouring of support that we saw even in the early hours when I was there from the Brookline community, giving of what they have to make sure that others who don't have what they need to make it through the winter was really heartwarming. I just want to put on everyone's radar, just remember, that there are folks even in our community and in surrounding communities, who are going to need support to get through a cold winter. And so if you can help in any way that you can, that would be phenomenal. Also following up our conversation from last week, I heard from Gary Moorhead from Cataluma, who spoke about supporting refugee resettlement, about another person who's resettling in Brookline. I was glad to hear, and sort of calling out to the community for support there too. So, happy to be a conduit. You can either reach out directly to Cataluma, or you can contact me, and I'm happy to be a conduit if you want to get more involved in supporting refugee resettlement in town, to get you connected to Gary and to others who are doing this really good work too. So leave that there. So next up, we have on our agenda Brookline COVID-19 update and discussion on an order requiring COVID-19 vaccination for indoor entertainment, recreation, dining, and fitness settings. Mel, do you want to kick this off? I know we also have Pat Maloney, our acting public health commissioner, with us. But Mel, why don't you do a little intro here?
Sure, thank you very much. Yes, Acting Director Pat Maloney is here and would like to provide some general update. As we all know, the new variant is making things different, and we're experiencing a lot more COVID infections in our community. And so Pat is going to discuss that. He's also going to discuss the distribution of the free test kits that the town was a recipient of from the state. Following that, I will frame the issue around the Boston order that we're going to talk about tonight, and then we'll have more of a dialogue. Thank you.
Great. Pat Maloney, your Acting Director of Public Health. What I have is a slide presentation just to go over some of the highlights of what's going on, where we're up to, what data we're seeing, and answer any questions. So I'm going to talk about state and regional data associated to COVID-19. What we've been using on our webpage, and I find it helpful to give perspective. We are in the Boston metro region. This is showing we're surrounded by Middlesex and Norfolk County, and we're all in the high designation. So no surprise there. A month ago, we were in a substantial level, but it's steadily been increasing, and we're in a high level. So we don't want to look at Brookline as this area that it's not surrounded by other locations. It is, and we want to keep track of that information also, what's going on. Something new in the public health world that we track and we find very useful is the MWRA has been great in assisting public health departments at the state and in the region, and they're tracking wastewater data, and they're finding that evidence of COVID-19 is being found in the wastewater discharge. So this confirms to us that we're seeing this both on the north of Boston metro area and the south of Boston metro area. And as you can see, the spikes are going up significantly. So that is another tool that we see that, yes, this is here for sure, and we have issues. Next is the hospitalization. You can see it's not as high as it has been in past, but there are some still significant numbers that we're keeping an eye on. There has been 1,600 hospitalized, 467 of those being hospitalized were fully vaccinated. And as was mentioned earlier by our select member is, yes, get vaccinated. Don't think that, oh, look at these people that are getting hospitalized. Why should I get vaccinated? You made an excellent point. If you're not vaccinated, if you don't get your booster, those symptoms could be very severe. So you want to avoid that and continue to get vaccinated, get those boosters. I don't want people to think, why should I bother? Because people are in that realm. No, continue to do that. Our vaccination rates, when we look at individuals that had at least one dose, we're very high. We're looking at percentages in 83 to 87. When we're looking at fully vaccinated individuals, we're looking at rates of 72 to 75. And the 75, what it excludes are individuals that are 4 and below that can't be vaccinated. So we're keeping track of that. And as you'll hear as I go through the slides, our mission is to get these numbers up higher. So I'm glad that you announced some of the clinics, and I'll be announcing some more where we're going to do even more, a big push to get clinics going on. This one is unfortunate, and it's really been stressing the health department in many ways. Calls, contact tracing, we are flat out. But as you can see, our current rates, we're up to 153 cases in Brookline. We haven't had that high rate in a long time. We're getting notification from our schools, all of our private schools. We're seeing a young population showing up positive, and our hands are full again. This is something we're hoping we were not going to be seeing. The antigen test, I wanted to update you on that. It's been very exciting, yet very busy here to be involved in this. It's a home test kit. It's a nationwide and statewide program under the theme of Stop the Spread. We received over 18,000 tests supplied by the Department of Public Health. We had great coverage in the media. Thank you for that. We were selected due to census data showing that we have a percentage of families living at or below the poverty level. So the department's focus has been to distribute to residents in need. And we've been working very hard, the whole staff here and our partners, as well as emergency management has been assisting us and will continue to assist us. And we've been distributing to our Brookline Housing Authority, Council on Aging, food pantries, targeted lodging homes and properties with subsidized residential occupancy, and community religious organizations, institutions. And this week we started the initiative, and we've already dispensed 9,000 tests this week, and continuing this week. We're really trying to get these tests in hands of individuals, because the focus is to, the campaign is Stop the Spread. People are having family gatherings, they're getting get-togethers, and it's great if they can be tested so they know they won't be coming to that gathering being positive. So this is very important, and I think it's a good tool across the state and the nation to put things in the right direction. We're trying to tap down those numbers. What is our action plan in addition to all of this? Well, we're getting, and I'll say slammed with calls. It's amazing the amount of calls. I haven't seen this since the beginning days of COVID. And as you know, I was here before I retired. So we just can't manage it. So I've communicated with our emergency management director and his team, and we're going to reactivate the call-in center. We have to do it. The calls are just too intense and too varied. So this week we're going to have some training, and hopefully by Friday we'll be able to activate it. And it's questions on the variant, on where to go, where can I get a test, how do I use the test kit you sent, and then questions also are coming in because of the publicity about the city of Boston's regional approach to addressing, and I know that's going to be your next agenda item. In addition, we're planning on setting up additional booster clinics. So and these are going to be by appointment, but we have the health department will also be involved with 2 clinics, booster clinics. And we're fortunate to get the state of Massachusetts mobile van to come to town. So I'm not announcing where and when. We're still putting those pieces together. So the dates and times will be announced. So you'll see that shortly. We just got to firm up so that we're all on the same page and we have adequate accommodations. But we're really excited about that. So you're looking right there are 5 clinics that will be offered in addition to what was mentioned earlier. The health department is looking to purchase additional COVID home test kits. The feedback we're getting, all the calls that we're getting, I can't get a test kit. I go to the pharmacy. I go to urgent care. I can't get these home test kits. There's a rush on them. So we're going to look into seeing how can we acquire some. In today's Department of Public Health statewide meeting with all the health departments, they mentioned they're looking to see if they can get a low rate for boards of health to buy additional test kits. So that's in the works. Our Advisory Council of Public Health will be holding a public meeting to discuss the City of Boston's metro regional regulation for indoor facilities, which is requiring evidence of vaccination. And that addresses dining, entertainment, recreation, and fitness settings. And that is going to be Wednesday, tomorrow, the 22nd at 4:30, and it's going to be on Zoom. So we'd like to hear from the public, from industry, and I'll be presenting to the Advisory Council my thoughts on what the City of Boston has put together. I see some tweaks that we need if we adopt this in Brookline that would meet our needs better. Beyond that, that's what I have an update for the board.
Thanks, Pat. And let's do this. I want to take this in 2 parts. One is the numbers, where we are, questions board members may have about the testing kits and all of that. And then let's reserve time separately for conversation about the Boston program that was announced yesterday, and for discussion about what we think about that as a second go around. So initial questions or comments related to what you just heard from Pat. And as you get your hands raised, let me just say this for folks that don't know Pat Maloney. He's been with Brookline for a while. He came out of retirement at the time when we really needed him most, which was during the worst days, those early days during the lockdown period of the pandemic, and really helped us figure out how we were going to be able to see each other again, how people would be able to patronize the small businesses in Brookline, which was essential to keeping really underpaid workers employed. And Pat was an absolute superstar and an indispensable resource in getting us through some of the worst of it. And I'm glad, Pat, that you've been willing to come back and take on this role at a time when we need you again. So I just wanted to say that and get to say that in the intro. And thanks for being here, Bernard.
Yeah, thank you, Raul. And I second your comments about Pat Maloney. I mean, has been invaluable to this town for many, many years. Hey, my question is, the test kits that you're trying to acquire, are they going to be available for purchase by just anyone, or are they are going to be used for specific communities?
Well, right now we're focusing on specific target groups, but we're getting so many calls from our residents that there's an obvious need. They can't get it, and if the Board of Health has access to get it for them, so be it. I think this is an important role. This is where the town needs to step up and offer a service to the community. So if we can do it, I think it's an appropriate way of getting, putting our resources together to do it.
Pat, along those lines, can you talk more about how residents can access? do they need to call ahead to, let's say, the senior center? Can they just show up and request a kit, or do we know more about the process by which they can get these kits?
No. So at the senior center, somebody could go to the senior center. They have kits waiting as supplies last. Also, their social workers are bringing test kits out during their field visits to their clientele. So that's one mechanism. We distributed a number I didn't mention to Steps to Success. So they're doing their own internal distribution with the Housing Authority. We're giving them kits, as well as we're going door to door to put them in specific buildings. I'm hoping, and with all of the religious institutions, we're just giving them the kits and letting them distribute them as they deem appropriate. So, it depends. This is something that we're rushing to do it before the holidays. So, if they have a relationship with one of the organizations I mentioned, contact them and see how they'll be distributing them.
And Pat, is there a shelf life to those kits? I'm wondering, what the sort of the feedback loop is with those organizations, and if they have, kits that there just isn't need in their community, or that they're not getting out. If we can, if we have the time to sort of scoop them back and then redistribute them as needed.
Yeah, these kits, and here's an example of it. Oops, upside down. And it's interesting when I see this on national news. They're showing our kit, and this one is good until the end of May. So we have many months for these. So that's good. It's not you got to use it in a week or 2 weeks. You have until May to use that, and I'm hoping come May you won't need to use it, but.
Thanks. John?
Thank you. So Pat, I hope this question doesn't sound sort of contrarian on my part, but I happen to have passed by a couple of locations today where people were literally, lined up, down the street by the block. I mean, a block long or longer, to apparently to get test kits, and at that point, I began to wonder to myself, who is the top priority for getting a test kit, and who are the people who may be, because they see this kind of panic over test kits being in short supply, might be getting a test kit, but might not really need to have a test kit right now. So could you kind of put a better, just a very clear definition on who should be at the front of the line to get test kits, and who might think about waiting until this supply problem works itself through the system a little bit?
Sure. Well, if an individual is going to a family gathering and there's elders and there's high risk population at that gathering, they should be testing. They should be testing because that population is very susceptible to the infection. So to me, that's critical. If I know I'm going to see grandma, grandpa, or Uncle, Charles, who's undergoing chemotherapy, test before you go to that function, so because they're very susceptible to that. Basically, what we're doing in our distribution is honoring what the state, when they supplied it to us for our target population. The underserved population, persons at poverty level or below. If I had a magic wand and I had the deepest pockets, everybody would have a test kit because it's advantageous. We all are having get-togethers during the holidays. So that's why it's clear we need to get more test kits so we could get them in the hands of all of our residents. But if you're getting together, as I said, with elderly and with immune compromise, that's red flag. We need to test before we have those gatherings. Does that help? I'm sorry, you're
Muted.
John,
Yes, Pat, it helps. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. Pat, speaking about, you mentioned, and 100% with you on, these tests were given to us for a specific population, for specific purpose. you also talked about the potential for purchasing kits in the coming days. I know we've heard from members in the business community through the Chamber of Commerce about the desire for them to have access to kits for employees, again, to give people confidence and to make sure that that COVID isn't spreading in the front of the back of the house or amongst employees in our businesses. What are your thoughts on that right now about including the business community as part of potential purchase of kits going forward?
Yeah, I think there's strong merit in that regard. And by the way, I've already volunteered my services to economic development. We are planning on having another one of those meetings, which were, as you said, were very positive and well received by the industry. But yeah, that's the front line of service industry. And one of the things we're hearing is, they want to, people operating businesses, they want that security to know that their staff is safe to be working, and to have that capability to do routine testing of that nature is a plus to them. So there's strong merit in that regard. So again, like I said, if I had the power and that magic wand, I'd give it to everybody. But we have to start somewhere, and so we're starting now. But we're looking down the road. More will be needed. More will be requested, and we're going to see if we can meet that need.
Thanks, Pat. Switching to the numbers, one of the among the statistics that we've gotten are these 4 deaths, and I want to, to the extent that you can tell us information about these deaths. In particular, my big concern is around the nursing homes. That is where we saw a significant loss of life in Brookline in the past. I don't know if any of these are attributable to nursing homes in Brookline, and you don't have to name which ones or anything like that right now. But I'd like to know if there's anything there.
Yeah, no, I haven't been alerted that they're related to nursing homes. So I can't report that. However, this is interesting. We've been getting feedback from nursing homes looking for the town to adopt this standard where to enter the facility, you have to show vaccination, evidence of vaccination. So I think that's something that, is going to be on the table for sure. That makes sense. Right now, it's not mandatory. They have to do it individually if they want an internal policy. They've been asking for regulatory oversight to mandate this.
For us to do that, or for the state to do that?
Or, well, our local Brookline facilities have contacted me to ask, they heard about the City of Boston proposal, and they said, could you add nursing homes to that?
Okay. I'm actually glad to hear that. It was an absolute shame what happened during that first long wave, when we saw I know obviously many more deaths outside of Brookline, but the overwhelming number from nursing homes. And I wish we did more to ring the alarm about that with the state. I wish I did more to do that too. And I just want to make sure that we, this time around, if these numbers do start to continue to tick up, or now or in the future, that we're keeping an eye on that and making sure that, I know that, and having talked with Dr. Jett about this in the past, those nursing homes aren't under our authority necessarily. They're under, the state is the oversight body, not us. But there's still people who live in Brookline, and there are residents. And anyway, it was a complete failure there. And I'd like to see us be more vocal about, if that happens again.
And that's something Dr. Jett started that process, and we're seriously looking at that to get the authority to go in. Infection control, that was where it lapsed. And, it's a night and day situation right now. We're not hearing of those nursing home numbers because that was a wake-up call. So infection control is a top priority at all facilities. But I think we need to go in and check and make sure they're doing it correctly. So we're looking at putting something together so we can go in that direction also.
Appreciate that. All right, well, let's expand this conversation a little bit. There were a couple announcements yesterday. One of them from the city of Boston. One around the requirement for proof of vaccination for indoor dining, fitness centers, and entertainment venues. And a second one around municipal employees and the requirement for a vaccination there too, which is something I know we've discussed in the past. So let's get into it. Let's Mel, do you have more you want to say about either of those two things?
Yeah, I did prepare some comments to
Great.
to provide some context for that. So thank you, Raul. So I was invited last week along with a host of other regional municipal executives to learn about Mayor Wu's plan to implement a what I'll call a New York City styled vaccine passport mandate program that will be for certain indoor venues in Boston, including restaurants, entertainment venues, fitness facilities. This was followed up on Friday where we had a further discussion of the program, including a presentation from a New York City official, which we found very helpful. The city of Boston, as you have mentioned, did announce its implementation of this program yesterday, which will convene in January. So Mayor Wu has asked the region's cities and towns to join into this initiative as a larger regional approach. And I wanted to explain my thoughts, some of which I've conveyed to the mayor and to the Metropolitan Area Planning Council, who is helping to facilitate the regional dialogue. I admire and support Mayor Wu's bold initiative. As I understand the city's goals, the program is intended to, number one, increase vaccination rates, and number two, avoid another collapse of the restaurant sector in the city. To me, those are very serious and reasonable goals for Boston and any community. Secondly, in Brookline, we need to engage our community leaders and also to, especially those businesses who will be on the front lines and will be required to do the proof of testing, proof of vaccine, I should say. And then finally, we have to have a serious conversation with ourselves about whether we have what it takes to enforce this. This is, as you know, a very divisive issue. The first two emails I opened this morning, both of them were very well worded and very respectful, but they were coming from opposite ends of the spectrum. One was strongly advocating for adoption of the Boston type program, another was advocating strongly against it. And I think that's what we're dealing with. We have and also learned that to follow the science is not that simple with COVID, and so this is a very difficult discussion. I'm appreciative of Pat's convening the advisory council on public health tomorrow evening. I think it will be very useful to hear from members of our community. I know they want to hear from you as the elected leaders in the community about how you're feeling. And so I would encourage you to have some of that discussion tonight. With respect to the employee mandate, the municipal employee mandate, I was actually not aware that those were going to be kind of tied together, and I'm not fully prepared to talk about that. I will say that the town has itself submitted to its unions a proposed mandate that we're discussing, and we continue to discuss. I would say that we're at the point where we have to make some decisions very soon, and I can answer questions about that. But at this point, I think it would be useful to discuss the Boston program and to see how the board feels about it.
Great. Pat, do you have more you want to say now, or do you just want to hear from board members? Oh, you're muted.
I could give you my thoughts, what I've seen. I do think it being addressed as a regional approach is good, because then it takes the heat off us to say it's just Brookline. Here we're seeing it in the region, so it takes across that border crossing issue. I do, if we adopt something in this line, I do like to hear that our elected officials are in line with a good public health practice. Showing vaccine cards is a good public health practice. It helps again, tamp down things. There's some tweaks that I see in the City of Boston proposal. They're exempting outdoor dining, and I have an issue with that. That translates to if the outdoor dining is exempt, then all of the non-vaccinated individuals would be sitting in those outdoor areas. I don't think that's a good message we want. Plus, this is not only for the purpose of protecting our community, but we're also protecting the workers and what workers would be working or who will say, oh, you get the outdoor dining tonight. Great, I pulled the short straw. So, we have to look at everybody who's impacted by this. I also have an issue with where they're exempting sports and entertainment entertainers. I get it. It's because we don't have a Boston Garden and we don't have large concerts, or we don't have a basketball team or a hockey team. But if we adopt something like this, for my comfort level, I would recommend that we put something in that would require those entities to do a pre-test prior to the event, so that we know if they're going to an event. Let's say we do have something here, that they get tested prior to that. We will. I'm hoping this is a memory for us come when the U.S. Open comes. But it could play out where we have to think about performers and things of that nature. But overall, I think it's something we should seriously consider, and I'm glad to see other communities are doing it. It's not just Brookline alone or Boston alone. So, but we still need to tweak it. I have to look at it further, and I know the Advisory Council of Public Health individually has given me messages of support with some adjustments. So that's just my overview. I'm still looking at it closely if there's any loopholes that I'm not comfortable with.
Great. Thanks, Pat. So what we'll do is we'll hear from board members. I know that there are also members of the public who may be interested in making public comment about this during the public comment portion. And so just know you'll have that opportunity. And what we're doing right now is having a discussion. A vote is not going to be taken at this meeting. The board members are going to weigh in and share their thoughts on this. We're going to hear your thoughts on this during public comment. As Pat mentioned, the Advisory Council on Public Health is having a meeting tomorrow where they're going to be discussing this and inviting comment as well. And then a decision will be made after we've heard from sufficient constituencies within the community. So just know that we're going to talk about it right now, but there's plenty of opportunity for the public to comment as well tonight. John, you're up.
Thanks very much. So just a few questions, if people don't mind. Pat, I'll start with you, if that's okay. Do you plan to make a recommendation to the Advisory Council on Public Health as to the other part of the Mayor Wu initiative, which is the requirement that employees of the City of Boston be vaccinated? Well, you're off mic, Pat.
No, that took me off guard. I was not, that wasn't, I was surprised that was on the agenda, and I think it took many people off guard. No, our focus is on this proposal for the vaccine, demonstration of vaccine requirement. That other part, I think, goes into the HR realm. There's many moving parts to that. Maybe down the line, we'll take that up. But at this point, our focus in the meeting for tomorrow is related to the vaccine presentation issue.
Thanks. This isn't directed at anybody in particular, but just to those who, to whom it might be meaningful. I hope that in the future, if we are invited to be part of some sort of a joint initiative with anyone, whether it be Mayor Wu or other local municipal official, we get clarity on what we're walking into, because it kind of, I have to say, shocked me that I thought I knew what Brookline was agreeing to participate in, But then what I heard announced at the press conference was something completely unexpected. And I'm referring specifically to the Boston initiative in terms of requiring all employees to have vaccinations. And I don't think any harm was done, but potential harm could have, was there in terms of sending a very confusing message to people as to what Brookline's policy is. Because as far as I know, as it currently stands, do we have a policy on whether employees have to be vaccinated? Do some employees have to be vaccinated, but not other employees? What exactly is our policy?
We don't have currently we do not have a vaccine mandate among our employees.
For any employees?
Correct.
So would that apply to employees who might be required by the nature of their job to enter establishments like restaurants and health clubs?
Under this order?
Yeah.
I don't know.
I'm raising that question because I'm trying to head off a situation where, excuse me, because we don't require an employee in a key position to be vaccinated, we don't have the ability to send that person into, say a restaurant to do an inspection.
So I can answer that based on if we were to do exactly as is written in the Boston protocol, there is an exemption for people who are entering the establishment for the likes of things like picking up food, making a delivery, fixing something. So you could say that an inspection would fall under that short-term visit exemption. That's if we keep that wording, but it is there currently.
I appreciate that, Miriam. Thank you. And I was aware of that possibility as an exemption. I do wonder if that sends rather a mixed message. But I won't pursue that any further. I'm also, as we're speaking, getting text messages indicating that there is a vaccine mandate for school employees. Is that correct to our knowledge?
That's my understanding.
So these are the kinds of things I would love to see addressed in terms of the policy that we come up with, because I do think we have to speak with one voice and one policy when it comes to vaccine mandates. And I think that applies to what we require of local employers, and to ourselves. And it also applies in terms of what we have as a policy for school employees, as opposed to a policy for all other employees. So I'm just putting that out there as kind of markers that will be of concern to me as to the policy that we develop.
John, I hear you raising questions, and I understand that. I do think, though, however, and this is our last meeting before the end of the year, and so I think what Pat is looking for is guidance from this board as to what we, knowing all that we know right now, would like to see from that policy. So I'm not 100% clear if you're saying, do you think we should be having a vaccine mandate for employees? We've talked about this numerous times on this board. I just don't remember what your thoughts are on that. And also, do you think that by and large, the policy that Boston implemented should be implemented here? And if there are things that you like or don't like about it, I just want to make sure that Pat leaves here with clarity from each board member, even if we don't all agree. But I just want to make sure that he's clear on what your positions are.
I welcome that question, and my answer is number one, I want to hear what the recommendation of the Advisory Council on Public Health is, and I also want to hear of equal importance to me will be Pat's recommendations, because as he said leading off, he's looked at the Boston policy. He thinks there are ways that it can be tweaked. I want that kind of guidance, both from him and from the Advisory Council on Public Health. And I want their guidance on this very question that I've already raised. I won't repeat myself too much, of What about employees? What about town employees and school employees? Can we have two different policies for those two groups? And what about private employers and the town as an employer? Can we have two separate policies for those two groups? I want to hear what they have to say about those questions.
Thank you, John. Miriam?
Thank you. I'm going to be super, super clear. I am hugely, well, let me back up a second. I think that there are two interconnected, but separate issues here, right? So I'm going to take one at a time. The first is the vaccine mandate for entering restaurants, bars, gyms. I feel very strongly in favor of this, of copying, making unique to Brookline, but otherwise copying the Boston mandate. I wouldn't tweak it too much, obviously, because, and I think Pat knows this, in order to have compliance, we don't want it too different. But we know vaccine mandates work. We know they work. There's a mountain of evidence that shows time and time again that you institute vaccine mandates and you increase vaccination rates. In New York City, they saw a 9% increase in vaccination rates after the first month of the mandate, and it continued to rise after that. So we know this is a good way to get vaccination rates up. We know getting people vaccinated helps tamp down disease. Second, I think very strongly that this is not only a public health imperative, but this is actually a pro-business initiative, right? People will go out to eat when they feel comfortable and safe inside a restaurant, knowing everyone else around them is vaccinated. That's the first thing that makes this pro-business. The second thing that makes this pro-business is anything we do to avoid having another shutdown. The worst thing for a business's bottom line will be to shut down. So, if this is a way that we can prevent that from happening, then it's a pro-business initiative. And then finally, what Pat has said before, which is we're also protecting the staff that work in these industries. And so I feel very strongly, I'm totally in favor of this. Boom. Second issue, vaccine mandates for municipal employees, 100% behind it. These are individuals who are interfacing with the public. Public doesn't get any choice in that matter. And I think that there is a public health obligation that they should be vaccinated, just like we did for, just like the staff, all staff and teachers in the public school system. So I'm a huge supporter of both of those. And Pat, any way that I can help you, or Mel, any way that I can help push those forward, you have my support 100%.
Thanks, Miriam. I should say, I don't know if we said before, but Miriam has been working on this while dealing with the symptomatic effects of COVID, has still been, working with Pat, Mel, and that sort of group of municipal leaders in and around Boston. So just props to you for doing that at a time when you could have not been doing that. John, I still see your hand up, but I want to go to Bernard first, and it's just still up. Okay, Bernard.
Yeah. Let's see. In terms of my thinking on this, I don't know what I think. Generally, it'd be good to have a mandate for employees. I think because of union situation, civil service with respect to public safety, people that's going to be difficult, and that's beyond my ability to think through at this point. But the idea that certain short-term visitors to restaurants are exempt, I think, is a problem. I mean, that is how you'd get infection in the staff of a restaurant that would impact the patrons of that restaurant. So I think that's generally not such a great idea. And I would sort of urge us to the extent that we can, not go along with that exemption from this. Looks like Miriam.
Yeah, I have Raul, sorry, I just have a direct response to that, Bernard, which it's a very common, actually. Ruth Ann Fuller had the same question in the mayor's meeting. And I think it's really important to be very clear. The point of the vaccine mandate in restaurants, bars, and gyms and whatnot is actually to increase vaccine compliance. So, Ruth Ann's point, which is good, which is we don't see a huge amount of spread within these places themselves. And that's actually for the most part true, not entirely true. But so if you keep the focus on the idea that, and actually I'm not disagreeing with you, but I just want to be clear that the goal is to increase vaccine compliance, right?
Yeah.
You want people to get vaccinated because they want to go eat at a restaurant. So I think it would be appropriate to keep some of these exemptions. I also think it'd be fine to get rid of the exemptions. I would defer to the advisory council and to Pat Maloney on that personally. But just to make you feel better in case they don't do that, I don't think it's a deal breaker so much.
Yeah, but I guess the my response would be, the exemptions ought to be looked at individually, see which ones make sense to keep, which ones, don't. And, from the standpoint of what maximizes both vaccination rates among patrons as well as everyone else working in the sector, and other factors.
Thank you. Pat?
The short-term exemptions, just where I suspect that's coming from is a contact, is when an individual is within breaking a barrier of 6 feet near somebody for 15 minutes cumulative. So I suspect that's where they were coming from when they put that provision in there. Plus understanding we have the mask mandate in town, so those individuals would be going into these establishments for their pickup wearing a face covering and in and out. So I suspect that's where they're coming from, that short-term exemption.
Go ahead, Bernard.
Yeah, on the issue of masks, could you talk a little bit about what types of masks we're talking about? I mean, I see people with surgical masks, but wearing them in such a way that doesn't really give me comfort. And, surgical masks really are the type of face covering that works within this type of setting.
So a good point. And what we're hearing now from, and it's in a recommendation level, they're recommending the N95 mask or the K94s, I believe they're called, which is a higher level. If you remember the beginning days of the pandemic, they were advising people not to seek those out because the medical industry was in desperate need of getting them and they wanted to get it to that population. Now they're plentiful and they're out there. So we haven't made this our official recommendation, but I think it's a good idea if you could get a higher level of mask. But that's still where we're looking at. I'm not sure what the availability is of all of them, but there has been from CDC, and Dr. Fauci mentioned the other day to try to get that N95 mask or equivalent.
Actually, my research, for whatever it's worth, is that the KN95 masks are fairly widely available. I mean, they're basically the same, except they're certified by different bodies. I mean, I went out and was easily able to order a big stack of the KN95s.
All right, let me just share a couple of thoughts and maybe ask a couple of questions as well. I think I agree that with respect to, I like the policy. And remember, what we're talking about here are three settings, right? Indoor dining, the Boston policy. And I know we heard from Pat, it looks like they might be interested in including outdoor dining as part of this too. But indoor dining for Boston, fitness centers, and the third was the entertainment venues. And so what we're talking about is congregate settings. And in the case of indoor dining and even fitness, in some cases, people having masks off, right? While they're eating, especially having masks off. And so it raises a risk of exposure there. And in terms of entertainment venues, sometimes people being more closely packed at a concert or something like that. I should say the Coolidge Corner Theater, since reopening, has already been doing this. They've actually been requiring proof of vaccination and have been able to host, sold out shows and things like that because of the kinds of confidence that people have in going to a place like the Coolidge, knowing that that is a requirement. By the way, I should say, we talked with as the chair of the Small Business Development Committee, I brought this issue up around the possibility of requirement to show proof of vaccination for indoor dining in particular at the Small Business Development Committee, and there was broad support for that, including from the members of the chamber. Just yesterday, I heard again from Debbie Good-Miller, who gave me permission to share her message about this, which is, yes, instituting a consistent message that keeps the public safe while protecting small business people is a win for the community. This news surge calls for stricter measures. And so we're hearing from the business community in Brookline that they do want something like this, because they understand that in order for people to come out and participate in the local economy, that they have to feel a sense of confidence and safety in doing so, and that that this provides a greater sense of confidence and safety. So I'm broadly in agreement with the policy that Boston's adopted. I'm certainly open to, based on Pat's comments earlier, including outdoor dining as part of that. Such as it is in the winter months, but and also having the least amount of exemptions possible, only when we think they absolutely make sense. We don't have athletes and entertainers and things like that, to the extent that those entertainers certainly, but to the extent those kinds of things are going on in Brookline, I don't know that those exemptions make sense here. So that leads me to a question, which is about kids and young kids in particular. And the Boston policy starts on January 15th, but ramps up over time to include kids as young as 5. And I just wanted to hear, Pat, from you, if you had any reservations about that aspect of the policy, based on what we know about vaccines and kids and things like that. And obviously, Miriam, based on your expertise, if you wanted to weigh in too, but I want to hear from Pat first.
Well, what I'm pleased to see is that parents are supportive of when it opened up for children from the young age of 5 and up to get vaccine. We had a tremendous response with our clinics at the schools. They've had a tremendous response with their clinics. So I'm seeing support for children to get vaccinated. I see that as a plus. Will that impact, are enough getting vaccinated so that they would have evidence to go into facilities with showing something? I don't have a good read on that at this point. I have to see what those vaccination rates were, but that's a very good point. We should look at that, because it would be unfortunate if, for some reason they couldn't get access to a vaccine, and as a result, the family couldn't go to dining or something of that nature. Is that what you're thinking towards?
Well, I'm actually wondering, and that's helpful. I'm actually wondering about any concerns about where the science is as it relates to vaccines and kids, and any negative impacts for kids based on what we know right now that we should be thinking about.
Oh, no, as a public health measure, this health director supports that. We want to, when the FDA and the CDC said we can now go down to age 5 and up, that's the better. Now we're adding more to the herd immunity. It's a plus. So no, I'm not concerned about that. The science has been looked at. It's been recommended by FDA, CDC. We're comfortable with that. I am.
Thank you, Miriam.
So I'm going to totally agree with Pat, and I'm going to say 2 things. The first is that Pfizer is fully approved by the FDA. It is, in fact, not being used on an emergency exemption anymore. So to be clear, it is fully approved by the FDA. And the second thing is, it is fully approved to be used in children's age 5 and up. So there is no concern for me. My 2 children are vaccinated. And if I had children 5, 6, 7, or 8, I'd get them vaccinated. So I totally agree with Pat. The science is there, and I encourage you to vaccinate your children 5 and older.
Great, thank you. The other thing I want to mention, and by the way, we're at 6:37, you know, this is an important conversation, and I'm glad we're taking the time to have it. So I'm not rushing us, just making sure we know where we are. And I saw before she had to run, Dr. Natalia Linos put some information into our Q&A. And one thing in particular that she reminds me to talk about or ask about is, you know, the Boston policy is scheduled to go into effect January 15th. You know, in order to give you know, businesses in particular and people more generally the opportunity to be ready to comply, and also to get vaccinated for, you know, employees who aren't already vaccinated, or for members of the public who say, well, now's a good opportunity for me to get vaccinated because I want to be able to participate in indoor dining or entertainment or whatever it is. I would just urge, and I've heard this from other members of the community too, you know, if we feel like we are ready and we can implement this sooner, you know, I really would, as much as I want to act, you know, with Boston and with other communities at the same time. And I think generally speaking, I'm very much in favor of us all taking relatively the same measures at either exactly or relatively the same time. The sooner the better. If we believe, as I do, and it sounds like my colleagues do, that this is going to help stop the spread, get more people vaccinated, and ultimately what this does is save lives, then, you know, if we're ready sooner than January 15th to roll this out, I'm not quite sure why we'd wait that long if we feel like we can be ready sooner. And so that's my perspective that I'm sharing, but you know, if others wanted to weigh in on that too, or you can take that for what it's worth and hear more from the public and from the advisory council tomorrow. Anything else board members or Mel want to say now before we open up to the public? Bernard.
Yeah, I just want to make note that in the chat box, there is a comment from someone about the senior center, as Wendy Mackmuller. Number to call is 617-730-2770 for test kits, and their distribution protocol is Brookline residents over the age of 60 and 1 kit per person. I think that's important information. Thank you, Wendy.
Very helpful. Thanks, Wendy. Okay. So let's do this while we still have Pat with us. Let us open up to public comment. Anyone that specifically wanted to comment on this issue, if you have another comment on something that's not at all related to what we're discussing right now, hang tight. We'll make sure that we get to you as well. But I wanted to at least open up public comment first on this issue before we move to any other issue, or we'll just get confused. And I want us to be able to focus on what you have to say if it's something other than this as well. So let me just we'll go forward with opening up public comment, and I'll play myself now again. Thank you for joining us for public comment. This is an opportunity for us to hear your perspective on the issues in Brookline that matter to you. We do have a few rules I'd like to share. Each person speaking tonight is limited to 3 minutes. You don't need to use the entire time, but you may if you'd like. Please refrain from personal attacks and from addressing personnel issues during your comments. Members of the public sometimes raise questions during public comment. We may be able to provide a quick answer to a question, but are more likely to work with staff to get a more thorough answer and respond over email. We'll let you know when you have 30 seconds remaining and when your time is up. Please conclude your remarks at that time. If you have more to say, you're welcome to send an email to board members expressing your thoughts in greater detail. Devin, who's first on our list?
I believe the first person signed up for public comment specifically on this issue could be Susan Granoff, but folks who join during the meeting don't always give me their topic. So Susan, I noticed your hand was raised early on. Are you interested in making a comment on the COVID-19 policy?
Yes, I am.
Great. Your 3 minutes will begin when you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to say I'm so pleased at the attention that the town is giving to this very serious issue. I wanted to add that there are 2 additional concerns that may or may not have been addressed yet. One is, what do we mean by a fully vaccinated person? Does it include a booster or doesn't it? Because of the latest scientific information, it seems that boosters are what are most effective against the spread of Omicron. So perhaps when we require people to be fully vaccinated, perhaps we should be more clear that that also means having a booster if they're eligible for boosters. The other thing is in the denser parts of Brookline, the Coolidge Corner area and other areas, even walking along streets without a mask can spread Omicron because the standard definition of what would be a safe area with Omicron apparently is different. With Omicron being 6 feet apart and less than 15 minutes next to someone is no longer an adequate safety precaution. So I hope that will be taken into account. And finally, I did some research using the CDC statistics about deaths in Massachusetts, and I thought it was very revealing. Since the beginning, the total Massachusetts COVID-19 deaths, all ages, is close to 15,000 as of 12/11. Of those total deaths, 96% were individuals 55 and above, and 87% were individuals 65 and above. And even in the last 2 weeks, when you assume that a large portion of these individuals are heavily vaccinated, of the 227 total deaths in Massachusetts, 93% were of individuals 55 and above, and 78% were of seniors 65 and above. So I think that the urgency of getting test kits to seniors is really important so that they can make certain that anyone who visits them and comes into contact with them will not be exposing them to the potential of coming down with the Omicron variant. Thank you very much.
The next person signed up for public comment is David Gladstone. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin.
Good morning, select persons. Should I say good evening? Dave Gladstone, President, Brookline Chamber. I'm also a member of the Small Business Development Committee, and by vocation, I'm a business development banker. I respect the urge to make this almost immediate or to shorten the time than what Boston is doing. I think you have to give the businesses the ability to be able to react to these new restrictions and how they're going to need to be able to police it in their places of business. The only other point I'll make is a point I made before from a focus group that I had with the chamber, is that also I would ask that small businesses need the test kits. There was conversation saying that there was plenty of test kits available. They are not available. And I think that businesses also need to be able to some way be able to have the town help them, whether it be bulk purchase at cost or bulk purchase for free. With regards to what's happening with small business, there are a lot of businesses that are running their people longer hours than 8 hours. A lot of these people represent more than like one position, and it's very difficult. And it was brought up during the focus groups that it's difficult for the business people, the business owner, to get out, get the test kits, be able to find them, and it's only getting much more exacerbated now. Thank you for your time.
Person signed up for public comment is Joanna Klein. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your
Video.
It doesn't matter either way. What either?
You're on. We can hear you.
Yep, I know. Hi, I'm Johanna Klein. I'm a Precinct 9 voting member. I'm also a community physician in Brookline with my own practice. I want to highlight what Raul said in the sense that I am a small business owner. I'm respectful and understand completely that it's difficult to find the nasal test kits. I spent hours driving from pharmacy to pharmacy over the weekend and couldn't. Nonetheless, we do need to do it sooner. I've had several breakthrough cases in fully vaccinated persons. And just to answer that, fully vaccinated is boosted. Fully vaccinated is 3 vaccines. So I would urge the select board members to really strongly consider putting the mask mandate certainly in health clubs, restaurants, indoor facilities in place soon, because we're in trouble and we need it. Thank you.
Next person signed up for comment is Ann Weaver. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin.
Hi, everyone. This is Ann Weaver. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 11. I canceled a dentist cleaning appointment for my son today, who is 16, because his pediatric dentist office in Brookline is not mandating that their staff be vaccinated. So I'm wondering, in terms of this COVID-19 policy that you guys are thinking of putting together, which I fully support, if there's any way to also mandate that healthcare offices within the town of Brookline are mandated to vaccinate and boost all of their staff members. Thank you.
I believe that concludes the people who are interested in speaking on COVID-19, but there are still 2 folks signed up for public comment interested in a different issue. So I'm not sure how you'd like to proceed.
Yeah, so let me just say something and then give Pat an opportunity to offer any final remarks, and then we'll go on to other business. Just 2 things. One is we also received an email from the president of HealthWorks, who is very supportive. I know this was a question before around the fitness community of the Boston program, saying vaccines are the best way to protect our residents from serious complications due to COVID and prevent our healthcare system from being overloaded. Now is the time for a clear, consistent message that everyone needs to be vaccinated. They're going to be notifying their members tomorrow that all HealthWorks locations in and out of Boston are going to require members to be vaccinated, following the guidelines and timelines of the Boston Be Together program. So wanted to offer that too. The other thing Susan's comments got me thinking about is the BU and boosters, as well as there are a number of universities in the area that have now decided to require a booster shot to return to campus in this, what we call the spring semester, which is, right after MLK Day, around that time. And that includes faculty, staff, and students. I know that that college students have been a population of concern in the past, and so for those that haven't been following that, a number of the universities are requiring booster shots for return to campus for anyone who's coming back to campus. So I wanted to share that too. Okay. All right. Before we move on to other issues, anyone else on this issue around COVID? Pat Maloney, any final words here?
Yeah, again, I think this is why I've been here for 38 plus years. The comments I heard tonight from the board and the public, we have such a dedicated and educated community, and everything that was mentioned, I'm going to take back with me to the Advisory Council of Public Health. I know on their agenda, we're going to be hearing of an implementation date. I know that was when they contacted me individually, that was some of their comments. So we'll see where that comes out. I do want to mention about the current status of what is deemed fully vaccinated. Right now, under CDC definition, it's 2 vaccinations, but they're looking at that. They're looking to revisit it. So I think we may be hearing that 2 vaccinations and a booster is fully, but right now it's just the 2.
Okay, Pat, hang on. We have one more comment from the public on this, so don't go anywhere just yet, okay? Nicole?
Hi, Nicole McClelland. I'm a town meeting member in Precinct 11. And I definitely appreciate the urgency here. I do have a couple of hesitations about this, and actually some questions, I guess, to the board or Mr. Maloney. First, I was surprised. I guess we need to sort of dig into it further, but surprised to hear Miriam, Select Board Member Ashkenazi say that the vaccine is fully approved for the younger ages, 5 to
Yeah,
11.
I do want to, I asked Raul, I didn't see it, to make a correction for that. It is fully approved for children 16 and up, and it's still being used under emergency use authorization for 5 through 12 or 5 through 16.
Thank you for clarifying. So that's one of my concerns. I have a lot of thoughts on that. I mean, one is simply that, we've basically been running an experiment in our public schools for about a year now about the transmissibility from children and how much of a threat sort of unvaccinated until recently children pose in the community, including unmasked and eating together. And I found the statistics, and out of, I think, 1,230 close contact cases, so that means 1,230 incidences where children were near a COVID positive person. There have been fewer than, I think, 5 in school transmissions. So that translates to less than 0.5% transmission rate from unvaccinated children. So to me, sort of rushing ahead with this imposition that would compel parents to have to make this choice for children for a vaccine that does not yet even have full FDA approval is overstepping, frankly. I would hope that the select board would consult with experts and also defer to the bodies that are charged with this decision-making before compelling this for parents and caregivers to have to decide for their children, especially given that we are not seeing that children out and about freely moving in the community are contributing in any significant way at all to spread, even when they are in pretty close quarters. So that's my first concern. My second one is, okay, thank you, Steven. I think in reading the Boston policy, there is a significant lack of clarity regarding people with legitimate medical vulnerabilities that make them unable to be vaccinated. Basically says if a customer requests an exemption, they should engage in a cooperative dialogue at whatever venue they're at. There are real privacy concerns to that. There are definitely people that have legitimate medical reasons that they cannot be vaccinated. So I'd love to hear from the board what your thoughts are on that, and understanding the implications of that. For example, thinking of a parent being compelled to tell a hostess at a restaurant that their child underwent chemotherapy and can't be vaccinated, right? And you can think of multiple examples of this, someone having to explain their medical condition in order to gain entry because they can't be vaccinated in something that's totally out of their control. So I'm curious what the board and Mr. Maloney's thoughts are on that element.
Great, thank you. Bernard?
Yeah, I just wanted to make sure that Pat talks about the issue of medical offices. And that is something that I think we need to think about.
Yeah, we have an awful lot of medical offices. What that translates to, as I see it, is we now become the OSHA for these facilities to say this is what your staff has to have to be working. I have to think of that. I have to reflect on that. We have an outstanding advisory council of public health. Most of them are MDs with MPHs. So I'll be seeking their feedback on that. And the previous speaker made some excellent points. I'll bring that up also to the advisory council tomorrow. And a good point also about individuals. If you are religiously exempt or medically exempt, you don't get a card. So yeah, how do we address that? These are things that we haven't ventured towards. So I'll be looking to see how other states, if they've already adopted this, how does New York City handle that particular exemption? So good points. I'm glad you brought them up because we're still piecing this together. So thank you. Those are good comments.
Yeah, thanks for that. Thanks, Pat. Yeah, I'm going to be very interested to hear the conversation tomorrow at the Advisory Council of Public Health and hear the experts weigh in on that as well. I think you raised some real issues that we have to think about. It's one of the reasons I asked about children earlier in the conversation. So, what I want to be clear on for members of the public that have been watching this is that we did not make any decisions tonight. So the policies that you woke up with in Brookline this morning are the same as the policies. We have the same policies right now. Okay. And a decision hasn't been made yet. As I mentioned at the onset of this conversation, this is us sharing our perspective on it based on everything that we know and the involvement that we've been having, that this board has had in fighting this pandemic. This was an opportunity for members of the public to weigh in. They'll have another opportunity tomorrow to weigh in at the Advisory Council on Public Health, and we'll get to hear from those experts that we have advising Pat and others on this tomorrow. And then we're going to go forward, make a decision that works for Brookline. I do hope that it is as much in line as possible with Boston and our neighboring communities, so as not to sort of sow confusion in the public about what policies look like here and there. And when I cross this imaginary line from one community to the next, I think it's most helpful if people can have some sense of understanding of what the policies are generally in this area. So, all right, we're going to close that out there. Pat, thanks for your time, and we'll keep the conversation going. Mel, do you have more you want to say here?
No, I want to thank Pat as well.
Yeah, thank you so much. Okay, back to public comment, Devin.
The next person signed up for public comment is Marty Rosenthal. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your 3 minutes will begin.
Thank you. I have a quick point of order. Due to the ambiguity of 3 and 5 minutes, can I have 3.5 minutes, please?
Sure, Marty. I don't know the ambiguity was, but let's go for it.
Well, I wasn't sure which it would be. That's all.
Okay.
Thank you. All right. So as a former police commissioner and author of that title's bylaw, chair of PACs and over 4 decades at TMM9 and a lifelong townie, I thank Michael Keaveney for spotlighting our unconscionable and blissful inattentiveness to the police morale crisis. For imminently 60 years, PACS has valued schools and police as our biggest and most complex local issues. The actuality and ramifications of the morale issues are partly nationwide, but here I call them a true crisis on the order of the Alston case and COVID. So my question is, what have you, the town leaders, done for 272 days to address the morale crisis described March 24th by the Reform Committee? Instead, that we this week again have the usual outspoken handful of TMMs downplaying and obfuscating it, and then the usual silent majority who silently appreciate our great, courageous, and humanly fallible police officers. From the board, we've seen exaggerated and scapegoating of walk and talk and SROs, and now a 2-delayed holdup of Lieutenant Campbell's promotion to head the leaderless traffic division. I hear there's a complaint against him that's being investigated. Okay, but first, it should be accelerated. Second, the Reform Committee heard lots from Campbell, studied his reports, and also heard disgruntled complainants. His job unavoidably invites criticism from inevitably zero-sum adversaries. It personifies one of my favorites from a select board role model, Mr. Aristotle. Criticism is something we can easily avoid by saying nothing, doing nothing, being nothing. I've diatribed before about the morale crisis in my Reform Committee separate statement, and then in May, July, and August emails to the PACs and TMM listservs, which I'll now attach again to those 2 lists. In the former, I said, I've read hundreds of police reports and have never seen any, even homicides or FBI, more thorough or professional than Lieutenant Campbell's, like his detailed, clear, and compelling reasons for credibility findings. He's an excellent cop's cop. Back to the big picture. First, please treat the morale as a crisis, including the tough budget issues, and by the way, also adding driver population study to the budget equation. Second, please welcome PCAC input, which I hear will start next Monday. And third, as the Reform Committee last year pushed, Mel should prioritize certain reforms as values and objectives in the soon financial plan. After 5 decades immersed in Teddy Roosevelt's arena, please Google it if you don't know what I'm talking about, I thought nothing could shock me, but I'm truly astonished that those whom I very respectfully call well-intentioned anti-racist activists do and say things counterproductive both to necessary police reforms and to more residential and police force diversity. So please be our leaders, maybe even be menschers. Let's end gratuitous divisiveness and instead work together for a better town. As Mike Sadman said last month for Stanley from the Beatles' anti-war song, all I'm saying is give peace, and I'm now adding comedy a chance. Thanks, I hope, for listening.
The next person signed up for public comment is Deborah Brown. You've been promoted to a panelist. You can unmute and your time will.
My name is Deborah Brown. I'm a town meeting member, Precinct 1. And I'm just going to respond very quickly to what I just heard. Divisiveness typically requires two sides. I am an unabashed, liberal, progressive. I believe that there's a place for law enforcement. And I also believe that there are places where there isn't room for law enforcement. I believe that the town has an issue or a problem with morale, and it's not just limited to police, and that to create this schism between morale being only a function of the police department undermines and ignores the hard work done by every other town employee, many of whom who are not paid nearly as well as police officers. Is there a problem? Yes. Should it be addressed? Yes. But I would propose that any problem that we look at should be town-wide. It should involve all municipal employees. And we should begin by something as simple as a survey. Let's figure out, do 360s. Let's ask some tough questions of ourselves as a community, as civic leaders, as employee peers. That's what a healthy organization does. But to single out one group versus another, that's not good human resources, and it's also not good government policy. But that's not why I signed up to speak. I wanted to mention very quickly a few things. One, I just learned today that the rec department scholarships for disadvantaged children caps out at 35%. That means that families could be expected to pay, as much as 70%, and that is for each extracurricular activity. I think that's a flaw in the program. Did you know that BHA tenants living in family housing are responsible for coming up with their own refrigerators? I'm not making this up, folks. To date, BHA has received no money from the town for those 25 units that was voted on a town meeting last year, this past town meeting. It's a shame. We had a long discussion last week about the budget. We talked about everything that needed to get done except work and services for the most vulnerable. So I am going to state, a grave disappointment in select board's willingness to take this up. I'm going to now expedite and talk a lot more quickly. I think that there's a diversity plan study that's supposed to come out that highlights EEO information. This should have involved a community engagement plan. Coming out of DICR, I would expect nothing less, but to the contrary, that's not what we got. That is a fundamental failure of leadership, and I would ask Mel and the select board to carefully revisit you know, how these offices make decisions. It's a shame that the only way we're going to see this information is if we happen to be at a select board meeting. This information should be distributed widely. Lastly, and I know I've probably got 3 seconds left, when I go to the website and I look at the COVID data, there's a real problem with the statistics. You'll find instances where as many as 18% of the, you know, race or ethnicity of people who have contracted COVID. You may see a number of 18% that's other.
You've reached your time.
We just 10 more seconds, please. We need to clear up that mistake or be able to explain why you can have a number as high as 18%. And this is the town's data. This is not me crunching the numbers. But why it's important is because it might impact how we do our outreach. It may reflect that there are language access issues. I don't know, but I think it's important to evaluate. So thank you very much.
Deborah, thanks for that. And I think this falls under share with the select board your thoughts in greater detail over email. That way, because there's a lot in there, some of which we may need to follow up on. And so just if you can just put that even in bullet points in the email to us, we can work to follow up on those issues.
I most certainly will.
All right,
thank
you. The same goes for anyone else. Feel free to email us. We try our best to follow along as you go, but when you email us, that gives us something to work off of directly. Devin, anyone else?
That concludes public comment.
Okay. All right, folks, we are at 7:09. Let's start to pick up some speed here. What do you say? So let's approve some meeting minutes. We've got question of approving the meeting minutes from December 14th, 2021. Any other edits or comments about those minutes? Let's go forward. Let's get it done. Moving approval of those meeting minutes from December 14th, 2021. Bernard.
Aye.
John.
Aye.
Miriam.
Aye.
And I'll say aye as well. Okay, great. So next, we have our miscellaneous agenda here. Before we get into that, there are 2 items we're going to pull out. One is 3H and the other is 3J. For 3H, which is the question of accepting a grant to hire a zero waste program manager in the Department of Public Works, I'm going to toss it over to our DPW Commissioner, Aaron Galentine, for an update. Let me just get Aaron promoted right off.
Good evening, Aaron Galentine. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, wonderful. So thank you for the opportunity to share with the board and public a truly exciting opportunity that aligns with the DPW strategic plan and goals for FY23 and beyond. The department is in receipt of a grant to fund a zero waste program manager position for the next 2.5 years. The department and Solid Waste Advisory Committee, as a reminder, embarked upon a process this past year to develop a zero waste framework and set goals to move the town towards a greener, healthier, and more economically sustainable approach to solid waste management for the future. And at your last select board hearing, you heard a little bit about the zero waste philosophy from a candidate for the Solid Waste Advisory Committee. So many communities across the country and around the world are working towards zero waste in an effort to reach larger climate sustainability and public health goals. And while zero waste has been defined in various ways by different entities, a zero waste initiative generally sets a goal to divert approximately 90% of the waste stream from landfills or incineration. There are many community benefits that could be realized by pursuing higher waste diversion goals and helping both businesses and residents be more sustainable and efficient. The Zero Waste Program Manager will work with town staff and relevant boards and commissions to look comprehensively at the town's current program and see where we can make policy, process, and programmatic improvements. along with establishment of clear goals and objectives, cost analysis, improved public communications and education, and grant applications. A full rollout of composting in the schools will be a priority, along with an assessment of broader composting rollout options for the community, which were an important topic discussed at this last town meeting. So we're incredibly fortunate to receive this grant to move the initiative forward in Brookline. The Small Boston Foundation has chosen to remain anonymous, as they receive many competing grant requests from worthy causes. So with that, I respectfully recommend the board accept a grant in the amount of $335,000 for a zero waste program manager position and associated costs, and authorize the department to hire said position. And this will get us going for the next 2.5 years.
Great. Commissioner Galantine, this is phenomenal. One of the ways that we can extend our budget is through going after and getting grants like these. And this is a big one. This enables us in 3 budget years to have someone very much focused on this issue. So I think it's phenomenal. Before we move forward with approval, any questions or comments from members of the board? Okay, John.
Sorry, there I go. Yes, thank you very much, Commissioner. And this is kind of a question for whoever wants to take it, Mel or Commissioner Galantine. The only, and I emphasize only, downside, if it can be called that, to the news of a grant of this nature and this amount of money for a position as vital as this, is that we will face the day when the grant money is no longer funding the position. And we will then have to figure out, where the money will come from to fund the position if we want to continue it, or how we can keep the benefit of the program without necessarily continuing the position. Does the town have a policy on how these types of positions that get funded through outside grants can be identified in the budget for the duration of the grant as a grant-funded position, so that we know what we're dealing with when it comes time to make those decisions?
Well, clearly we know which funds, which positions are funded by grants and general fund. I believe they're coded in that manner in the budget. So we do keep track of that.
I think I'll just add, this isn't this answer is not directed towards sort of the policy question, but specifically around zero waste and this position, as we're looking at significantly escalating costs to manage trash. I think we will see that for the community, there is great economical benefit in maintaining and sustaining this position over time. So we will be doing a full analysis on that. And, ultimately my hope is we'll be able to demonstrate great value that the community agrees is there, and that not only has the environmental benefits, but the economic benefits across the board. And then ultimately we would be rolling this into our refuse fee.
I raised the question only because I'm well aware that on the school side, there has been, a history of some questions raised about positions that were grant funded. And then when the grants expired, there was no kind of a, signal sent up. Now we have to decide if this is a position that we want to continue. It just kind of got baked into the budget. And this was despite a policy that they had, which was that managers would be required to notify, managers up the chain of command when a position that was grant funded no longer had grant money coming in to fund it. So that it didn't just kind of evolve over time, that the budget became burdened with a lot of positions that everybody thought we were getting for free, because they had a grant associated with them. And then it turns out, well, no, not exactly free, because years later, they're still there. And nobody ever said, wait a minute, was that the idea behind establishing the position in the first place? Or was it to be a 3-year or a 2-year or a 1-year position? So I'm just seeking, some clarity on that.
Again, I'll say we keep track of it, and we have to balance our budget every year, and so we take into consideration those positions that are funded externally, especially when those go. The one thing that I think we've not done in the past is we've not committed to doing that. Sometimes the grants mandate that you will fund it. This one does not, and we would not sign those agreements.
Thanks.
All right. Thank you, John. All right, let's go ahead and get this vote going. We've got actually 2 items under H. Let's take them together unless anyone wants to separate them out. They are first, the question of accepting a grant to hire a zero waste program manager in the DPW department and support supplies for the balance of FY22, 23, and 24 in the amount of $335,000, as well as the question of approving the authorization to hire for a zero waste program manager in the Department of Public Works. Let's go through. Bernard, what say you?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Vice Chair says aye. Thank you very much, Commissioner Galantine. Appreciate you.
Thank you.
The other one that we're pulling out, and we'll promote Chief Sullivan for this one, is 3J. And this is the question of approving the authorization to hire requests for a number of positions. I'm sorry, I'm looking at question of for the Chief of Operations in the fire department. Chief, I'll let you take this away.
Hello, Mr. Chair. Thank you very much.
Yep.
This is in regard to our grant, our EMPG grant, correct? Or are you going to the authorization to hire?
Authorization to hire for Chief of Operations in the fire department.
Okay, great. Thank you. I have two items on the agenda. I just wanted to make sure I got the right one with you. John Sullivan, Fire Chief and Emergency Management Director. Just a quick update that our Chief of Operations, Chief Keith Flaherty, is announced his retirement in early January after nearly 39 years of service. Chief Flaherty has been an outstanding partner in these last 4 years for me, as well as the previous 35 years in service to the community. And we hopefully plan in January, when we actually fill the positions, hopefully that you would be authorizing tonight to honor Chief Flaherty's and acknowledge him before the select board at that time. But right now I'm in front of you for the first part of the process, and that is the authorization to hire. This would include a recommendation to you for the next Chief of Operations. Through that process, we have looked at the internal candidates, and I will be making a recommendation to you at your next select board meeting, should we get the authorization tonight to fill that position. It likely will come from one of the deputy chiefs, the current deputy chiefs from our department. And then that would require that the deputy chief's position be filled, which would trickle down to a captain's position to be filled, and then a lieutenant's position to be filled. So right now you have before you 4 authorizations to hire Chief of Operations, Deputy Chief, Captain, and Lieutenant. The first one is really an appointment more than an authorization to hire, but that's the process.
Well, appreciate that. And, this gives us an opportunity is to thank Chief Flaherty for his service and to wish him well in retirement. And so thank you, Chief Flaherty. Any questions or comments before we move approval here? Okay, let's get it done. Oh, Bernard, please.
Yeah, by the way, we're just giving you authority to fill the position. The other, okay, the other positions really are not related to this vote.
They are not. We had another deputy chief who retired just a week or so ago, and back in October, you gave us the authorization to fill those positions.
Okay. And this is separate from the 3 or 4 people that we're voting next.
Correct.
Okay. I just want to be clear.
Yes, sir.
Great. All right. So this is 3J, question of approving the authorization to hire request for the chief of operations in the fire department. All those in favor, Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
It's an aye for me too. Thank you, Chief. And hang tight, Chief, I will say I'm going to want to move up a couple of the licensing items that we had scheduled for hearings at 6:30 and 6:45, and then we'll come back to the promotions. I just want to make sure that those folks that have been waiting quite some time have an opportunity, if there's anyone from the public that wanted to weigh in that's been sticking around for a while, but we'll be right back with you, okay?
Sure.
Thanks.
Yep.
All right, so let's take care of the rest of the miscellaneous, and this is always the part when Heather does it that that doesn't look that much fun, quite frankly. But 3B, question of approving an extra work order for the reconstruction of Winchester Street and intersection improvements at Naples and Gibbs with Charles Contracting in the amount of $207,519. Question of approving extra work order number 2 for work done by Park Landscape Associates in conjunction with a contract number, school grounds maintenance for additional leaf cleanup across parks and town grounds valued at $20,000. Another question of approving a work order for work done by Northeastern Tree Service. This is for the upkeep of trees and related work. Additional work is for pruning services in the cemetery, public parks along the public way, amount of $110,665. Another work order, question to approve for the reconstruction of Columbia Street and Hamilton Road in the amount of $35,937. That's with Fred DeRoma and Son. Question of approving the facade loan program application for Rifferlo Cafe at 147 Cypress Street. Question of accepting the FY21 Emergency Management Program grant from the Massachusetts Emergency Management Association in the amount of $21,500. And for these expenditures, $3,125 for Code Red licensing fee reimbursement, $9,175 for salaries, including CERT and Office of Management, Emergency Management intern, and $9,200 for emergency management supplies and equipment. Moving down to a question of approving the authorization to hire requests for the following positions. There are 10 of them within DPW, Water and Sewer Division, some pipe layer laborer positions, Highway Motor Equipment Operator, Parks and Open Space Division has Forestry Zone Manager and Gardener Laborer, and then Highway and Sanitation Division has Highway Motor Equipment Operator, a few of those, and Motor Equipment Repair Person. I believe that's everything. All those in favor? John, did you have a question?
Quick question before I vote, and that's for Commissioner Galantine. I do notice quite a few landscape contractual services in this list, and I'm wondering if this is connected to, problems filling positions within the department. Are these cleanup, remaining leaf cleanup and maintenance of parks and playgrounds, et cetera, positions? Usually, are these responsibilities usually handled by people from within the department, and is this unusual?
A little bit of both. So the park landscape contract for leaf removal and general cleanup, that is absolutely because of a shortage of staff support. So that is something that we need now. And generally, if we needed to increase the contract, we'd be looking at it in the spring. But this is something that, due to staff shortages, we felt that we really needed to do now. On the forestry, this is a contract. It's a critical contract for both emergency response and tree pruning. This contract has been depleted because of the significant storm response that we have had with Henri, with Ida, with some other storms this late summer and fall. And so we are currently in a position where we need to continue with tree pruning. The forestry zone manager has resigned, leaving us very short-staffed for that skill set in-house. And so this is really critical. So this is both a combination of storms and needing to make sure that we have the funding in the contract to continue with ongoing pruning requests that we have that are weeks delayed now, and also a staff shortage that we find ourselves in with the resignation of the forestry zone manager.
So thank you very much for that answer. And I just want to quickly make the point that I do hope, since we have, more or less by chance, found ourselves in the position of using outside contractors for a lot of what is the routine work, of the department. I think it would be beneficial to have an evaluation, later as to how that turned out, and whether there are advantages to continuing some of the services on a contractual basis, since we're already having problems filling the positions anyway. So, I don't think we should only resort to the contractual alternative just because we can't fill a position in the department. If it turns out to be a better alternative, I think we should find that out. That's all.
I think I'll just add that we've done this analysis several times, and we are very well aware of sort of the cost for contractual versus the cost for in-house, the pros and cons of both. I think it really benefits the town to have a balance of both in-house and contractual services. Both have their strengths, and I think add a lot of value to the town. So happy to discuss that with you further.
Great, thanks.
Thanks, John. Bernard?
Yeah, Commissioner Galantine, let me ask a question that's a little off topic, but I think is appropriate to ask right now. And that is, in terms of hiring for these types of positions, do you have a good list of minority or Black and Hispanic contractors who can be approached when there's a need for services like this? I mean, it seems to me that this is an area where we could do probably a little better. Although I don't know, maybe we're doing great by just identifying what firms are out there and making sure that they're in the pipeline when these positions or these opportunities come up. I'm not asking for an answer right now, but it'd be good, I think, for us to get a sense of what DPW does with that respect at some point.
So I'll just say that we're always looking at that, and I'm very proud of the diversity in our own workforce and in the contractors that we bring on board.
Okay, thank you, everybody. So I have already read out, I will not read again, all of those miscellaneous items. So I hope you remember them. They're in the agenda. I'm going to say all those in favor. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
I want you to recite them from memory.
Heck no.
No. Aye.
All right. Miriam?
Aye.
It's an aye for me too. All right, let's keep it moving. Here's what I'm going to do. I want to move 7 and 8 up. In case there are members of the public that want to comment on those. So apologies for keeping you all waiting, but also apologies to the staff that we're skipping over for, we're going to get to, after 7 and 8, we'll get to fire department promotions and the quarterly diversity and hiring update. So I want to make sure that if there are members of the public that have been hanging on for those other items, that we have an opportunity to get to those quickly. So item 7, package store license, Ceriso Market. This is around approving the application of a new all alcohol package store license for Ceriso Arcade LLC, doing business as Ceriso Market at 318 Harvard Street. And the proposed manager of record is Kevin S. Lowenthal. Stephanie, I see you're here to present.
Yeah, and I believe Nick Lasotto is here as well. I'm not sure if you have the ability to promote him, but I do see him on the attendees list. But I'll get started. Stephanie Boudreau here for the licensee applicant Ceriso Arcade LLC. This is an application for a new Section 15 package store license to be exercised at the Arcade Building on Harvard Street. The shop will consist of 400 square feet, open floor plan, and will serve the Coolidge Corner community with a focus on the BYOB concepts operating within the arcade, including Cobble, which is upstairs in the arcade, and its sister restaurant, which is opening soon, called Barlette. The proposed hours for the shop are Sunday to Saturday from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m. Ceriso Arcade LLC is the applicant. It's a Massachusetts limited liability company, and Nick Lasotto is the sole member and manager. Nick, as you may know, is currently the owner of Ceriso Wine Shop in Brookline Village and is looking to expand his Ceriso brand into Coolidge Corner with this smaller offshoot. An experienced sommelier, Nick will be bringing his favorite bottles of wine into the shop, one of each varietal for less than $35, and then a variety of other wines, beers, and spirits. The proposed manager of record, Kevin Lowenthal, couldn't be here this evening, but he's an Alston resident and has worked in the retail alcohol sales industry for several years, including in Brookline. He plans to be in the shop for at least 50 hours a week. He's tip certified and is looking forward to being part of this new venture. And while Kevin couldn't be here tonight, Nick is here and will be happy to answer any questions the board might have. Thank you.
Thank you. And this feels to me like a bit of deja vu. Weren't you here before recently? How is this different than what we approved in the past?
Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
This wasn't available a month ago. It is now. And this allows me to also serve spirits, whereas the one you guys have all already approved would not. So this is just kind of a more juiced up license. I hate to say it's the same song and dance from before. The only difference is now I'm a dad, which is pretty exciting.
Congrats.
So thank you.
But
yeah, I'm happy to kind of go through everything again, but it's literally the same exact thing, except in addition to wine and beer, I'll have my favorite version of every spirit as well.
Okay, great. I believe this is a public hearing, so let's go ahead and open that. If there are members of the public that wanted to weigh in, please raise your hand. In the meantime, any questions from the board? Okay.
At this time, there are 25 attendees and no one has used the hand raise or Q&A feature to indicate they'd like to make a comment.
Okay, great. Unless there are any other comments or questions, I'm going to go ahead and move approval. So moving approval for the application of an all alcohol package store license for Ceriso Arcade, doing business as Ceriso Market at 318 Harvard Street. Proposed manager of record, Kevin S. Lowenthal. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Vice chair votes aye. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you guys. Have
Thank
a
you
great
very much.
holiday.
You too. And congrats on being a dad. All right, next up is the all alcohol license for, someone's going to tell me whether or not this is Yume or Yume or some other variation of that. Stephanie, is this you as well?
This is me as well. Yep.
Okay, great. Let's talk about that. It's also, I've got two things here, an all alcohol beverages license for, can you tell me how to pronounce it so I don't mess it up?
Yumi.
Yumi, got it. At 1154 Boylston Street, proposed manner of record, Jacob Simmons. Operating hours, Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Proposed alcohol beverage service hours are Monday through Sunday, 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. And also question of approving application for a common victualler license for, again, Barushi, doing business as Yumi at 1154 Boylston Street. I believe the hours are the same here. Seating will consist of 60 seats. All right, Stephanie, it's yours.
Thank you very much. Select Board, I'm here with Jacob Simmons, who is the proposed manager of record. So this is the former Pete's location. And the plan here is to open a full service, high-end, 60-seat sushi restaurant with a full bar, a sushi bar, and a focus on sake. Proposed hours, as you said, are 11 to 11, Sunday to Saturday. The executive chef from Pagu, which was a fancy sushi restaurant downtown, has been hired and is in the process of creating a menu and food and drink menu, and will be serving as the executive chef for Yumi. The applicant is a Massachusetts LLC, Baruchi LLC. It has 3 members who are each also managers of the LLC. They are Fred Sterikoff, Alan Sheriff, and Stephen Whalen, each owning 1/3 of the LLC. They all have experience in the restaurant industry and come to Brookline bringing that experience with them. The proposed manager of record is Jacob Simmons. He's a resident of Newton and is with me today. Jacob has worked with the Baruchi team for over 5 years and has proven himself to be accountable, professional, and of strong moral character. As far as the community need, I live in this community, and with so many restaurants having closed down during COVID, including Ronski's, Camella, Osaka, which was sushi, Del Frisco's, and before that, the Met Bar, the addition of this upscale sushi bar is really going to add a lot of value to the community. They have a 10-year lease with a 10-year option, and they hope it to be in this community as a value add for many, many years. And I have, again, Jacob's on the call if the board has any questions. Thank you.
Fantastic. And I'll open this up as a public hearing. I see one hand up already. Let's promote David Gladstone. In the meantime, do any board members have any questions or anything they'd like to say?
Quick question, if I may, Raul. Sorry, couldn't get to the hand raise feature quickly enough. I live nearby and am very excited that this location, which has been unfortunately vacant for quite some time, is now going to be thriving again, and that there's going to be an exciting restaurant coming to Chestnut Hill. However, I just have a question, because I was in the past a person who visited that location when it was a Starbucks, and I visited that location when it was a Pete's. And the 60 seats just seems like a lot of seats for that location. It led to a question in my own mind. Have we as a town adjusted the allowable seats under a license for any location, whether it be this or any other restaurant location, to account for extra spacing, because of the pandemic? Because I could be wrong, but it feels like these are going to be very tightly spaced seats if there truly are going to be 60 of them.
Well, I can just say that the plan is to have 60 seats, but if there are COVID restrictions in place, if there's separation required, if we have to go back to that, then Baruchi would obviously comply with all of those conditions. But the goal is to have a 60 seat, and that includes a bar and a sushi bar restaurant. So hopefully we don't go back there.
And Mel can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think the capacity restrictions that used to be in place are no longer in place anymore. Is that right, Mel? Mel said that's right.
Correct.
Yeah, thanks. All right, David.
Thanks, Earl. The Chamber supports an expansion of a business like this into the Boylston Street corridor, and we enthusiastically support it. Do they have any visions of doing attempting to do any type of outside dining? That would be my question to them at this point.
Question.
I can speak, and then Jacobs can speak. I think the idea is that right now they're going to really focus on the interior, getting up and running, see how the space works, and then maybe next year, maybe next spring or over the summer, they'll think about whether outdoor dining would work. I think ideally they would love to have that, but they're taking one step at a time.
Well, we wish them the best of luck on this endeavor.
Thank you.
I'll go to Miriam, and then Jacob, if there's anything you want to say as well, please feel free. Miriam?
So I'll just echo that that's my neighborhood as well. And I'm very excited to see something in that space, which has been empty for so long. But I just give you and you probably already know this, but the caution is there's not a lot of parking spots there. So I don't know, what, just however that goes into your planning, just a heads up. Because when I think about outdoor dining, I don't know where you would put it, because you'd have to sacrifice the very few parking spots that you have already, but very excited.
And I suppose I can speak, thanks everybody. I suppose I can speak a little bit to that. Obviously we're hoping to get up and running before we I'd love to be at a point where we're saying we're ready to do expansion. That's, not where we're at yet, but certainly there is a lot of outdoor space, and, I think outdoor dining is proven to, not just be a temporary trend, but be something people want to see most of the year, unless it's actively snowing. There is a parking lot on site, and the plan would be to use those spaces if we see that there's an issue with, tightness. We might enlist the valet during busy nights if we do the outdoor dining and we see a reduction in the seats. But again, that's something we'll cross that bridge when we get there, and hopefully we do get there.
Great. Devin, anyone else for a comment?
This time there are 25 attendees and no one has used the hand raise or Q&A feature to indicate they'd like to make a comment.
Great. If there's nothing else from the board, I'd like to move approval for both the all alcohol beverages license as well as the common victual license for Barushi doing business as Yumi at 1154 Boylston Street. Again, the hours are Monday through Sunday, 11 to 11, and that's it. 60 seats. Okay, all those in favor, Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Thank you very much and good luck.
Thank you,
Thank you very much. Good night.
Right. Great. Take care. All right, Chief Sullivan, come on back. This next item is fire department promotions. We have the following promotions within the fire department. Actually, John, do you want to do this part?
Yeah, I'd be happy to. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Yeah, please take it away.
The final say, of course, is yours as the appointing authority. But I recommend that the following promotions be moved forward to this evening to fill the 3 vacancies that this board voted on October 19th to go ahead and fill. And in order of rank from lowest to highest, the first is firefighter Matthew M. Shatkin to lieutenant. You might recall his sister, Leah Shatkin, was promoted a couple of years ago as our first female firefighter to be promoted to an officer position. Now she's followed by her brother. Firefighter Shatkin joined the fire department in August of 2013. He's a state certified EMT, and he serves as a temporary lieutenant from June to November of 2021, where he exhibited excellent leadership and administrative skills. He holds a bachelor's degree in fire science from Anna Maria College. And he'll be a valuable member to our leadership team as a permanent officer, should you so authorize. The next person I put before you for your consideration is Lieutenant Timothy Anastas. Tim joined the department in 2014. He served as a temporary lieutenant from March of 19 to the February of 2020 when he was promoted to a permanent position. He's a licensed registered nurse as well as a state certified EMT and holds many pro board certifications, including Firefighter 1, Fire Instructor 1. Lieutenant Anastas served the town of Brookline with distinction as our planning section deputy chief at the Emergency Operations Center during the unprecedented time of COVID-19 emergency. His medical background has been a tremendous asset to our department's health and welfare, and I'm confident that he'll continue to be an integral part of our leadership staff into the future. Just a little quick background there. Tim volunteered to be reassigned at the beginning of COVID to the Emergency Operations Center and did a tremendous job of advising me and our staff down there as we tried to wrestle with some of those medical questions that we were all trying to navigate that Pat so eloquently talked about earlier. And just a personal point of privilege, it is great to work with Pat. He is a tremendous asset to the community, and I really want to thank him for all that he does. He's a breath of fresh air for sure. The last of our folks before you tonight for your consideration is Captain Todd Cantor to the position of Deputy Chief. He began his career with the fire department in 2004. And he has been a lifelong learner, pursuing knowledge and responsibility from the beginning. Along with being an EMT, he holds a certificate as firefighter 1, 2, officer 1, fire prevention officer 1 and 2. He's taken multiple courses and program certifications in arson investigation and code and ordinance enforcement. Captain Cantor serves as the town's foremost authority in plans review for new construction and major renovations projects. Captain Cantor was promoted to lieutenant in 2011 and then to captain in 2017. For the past several years, he served the community in the very challenging and complex role as the captain of fire prevention. His advanced analytical skills have proven to be a tremendous asset in this decisive role. And we're happy that Captain Cantor is going to stay in fire prevention and take over as the deputy of fire prevention. I want to thank Deputy Chief Randolph, who's done an outstanding job over the last couple of years in collaboration with the other department heads. But we're really excited to have Captain Cantor move up to deputy and stay in the fire prevention division. So I look forward to working with all of these new members, should the board so choose to promote them this evening. My recommendation is that they proceed to promotion.
Thank you for that, Chief. Really appreciate that. Any questions or comments from members of the board? John.
Yes, Chief, thank you so much. And quick question, will there be a ceremony to recognize these promotions, with the individuals present and the chief there and the commissioner there, excuse me, and the select board maybe, I don't want to
Yes, sir.
Beg for an invitation here, but I really would like to be invited if there's going to be a ceremony.
Yeah, actually there is, and it's tomorrow at 10 a.m. in the community room at the Public Safety Building. We forwarded that information over to Mr. Kleckner's office just yesterday. Trying to pull it together before the holidays was quite a feat.
Would you, without putting you on the spot, the select board on the list to be?
Absolutely. As commissioners, you are always on the list, John.
I look forward to it. So 10 a.m. Public Safety Building? Yeah, I'll wear my mask. I'll double mask. How's that?
10 o'clock in the community room of the Public Safety Building.
That's wonderful. Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. All right, well, let's go ahead. Oh, Bernard, please.
Yeah, and regarding Chief Flaherty, is there going to be any ceremony to recognize his years? I mean, he's an incredible firefighter. At least in my experience, working with him and seeing him when we selected you as fire chief. He was in the running, but as you said, he really stepped up and provided support to you. I mean, he's a great guy. Is there going to be any opportunity to recognize him at some point?
Yes, thank you, Select Board Member Green, for recognizing Chief Flaherty. And one of the things that is tremendous to me personally is that not only has he been a great asset to me as my right-hand person in the department, but he's also become a really good friend. So, just to share with the board, just a little bit of anecdote, and I hope he won't mind me saying so. His daughter gave birth to his first grandson just this morning. So he became a new grandfather this morning. So he was all beaming with pride. Unfortunately, you can't go in to see. They won't let you in the hospital, so they got to wait for the baby to come home. But yes, the answer is yes, we will be recognizing Chief Flaherty in the first week of January, and you will all get an invitation to that as well, a little coffee meet and greet for him and all of his years of service.
Well, with that good news, let's go ahead and move to approve these three promotions. All those in favor, Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
It's an aye for me too. Thank you very much, Chief, and congratulations to all those who've been promoted today.
Appreciate you. Thank you.
All right, next up, we're going to do this quarterly diversity and hiring update. We're going to be promoting Ann Hess-Braga, who's our HR director, and Dr. Lloyd Gelano, who is our Chief Diversity Officer and Director of the Office for Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations. And I'll let either one of you go ahead and take it away. And just as a primer for folks that are maybe seeing this for the first time, this is something the board requested probably a couple of years ago now. It feels like these quarterly updates. We often do these, get these requests for hire, and a lot of the conversation that we've had when we get these has been about what are we doing to make sure that we are hiring with an eye toward diversity, all kinds, certainly racial diversity being part of that. And as part of that, how successful are we in doing that? And so these quarterly updates make sure that the board's eyes are on that issue, and that we're constantly, thinking about what we can do to improve. So, who'd like to take it away? Anne, I'm nominating you.
Okay, so I'm going to share my screen and hide that. Share. And waiting for it to come up. Okay, well, I'll start with this. Good evening, my name is Ann Braga. I am the HR director for the town of Brookline. This is our diversity and hiring report. With me tonight is Lloyd Gelano, who is the Chief Diversity Officer for the town of Brookline. We have as of the 13th of December, we have hired 16 new hires across 9 departments. These are full-time benefited positions. We have hired hundreds of others to staff our state skating rink, the pool, and seasonal laborers and other things that are not included in this report. 7 females and 9 males across those departments, and only 2 of those were over the age of 40. The rest of them were under the age of 40. I don't usually point out sort of the over and under on age issues, but this was quite surprising. Mid-managers, we did hire 5 in planning, the select board, public works, and 2 in the aging department or council on aging. And those included, just to note, the board's focus on social services, hired 2 new social workers for the council on aging under Ruth Ann Dobeck, as well as to deal with our fund management on ARPA. We hired the budget analyst in the select board, so just making those of note. 2 911 operators, as well as 1 motor equipment operator. And then various teachers, recreation positions, a paralegal in the town council's office, and building and health inspectors. The next is a slide that you've requested in the past, is demographics of applicants. And you'll notice a 38, 35, and 27 split. The 38%, the largest proportion here, is for folks who don't fill out the EEO information as an applicant, which they're not required to do. So it's been a continuing challenge for us to sort of understand what our applicant pool looks like. These numbers haven't really changed over time since I've been here. And then we have our race of the applicant pool for those that have identified, and you'll see 34%, and this small box up here is the ones that have declined to identify. And so we're looking at 40% of the applicant pool not identifying as to a race or ethnicity during the applicant phase. And that isn't much of a change either. Related to all of this and some of the conversation that's happened around COVID and earlier conversations, I wanted to highlight what's been designated the Great Resignation, swap, or hesitation, and the impacts on the town of Brookline. We have fewer or no applicants to many of our positions, even if they've been out there for 2 weeks, 4 weeks, 6 weeks, or 2 to 3 months. Across departments and across types of positions. So it isn't just limited to our motor equipment operators or higher level mid-management analyst positions. It is across the board. Under the Great Resignation, or whatever title you give it, employees are choosing to leave the workforce or quit the workforce for retirement, safety, family, burnout. And when they come back to work, it's an extended period of time that people are waiting before they come back, and they're choosing to leave without another option. They come back in different roles with different priorities. Sometimes employees, COVID is a reality check and have said, you know what, I'm not happy doing this work. I want to do something else. And that has created a pivot. The impact is not evenly felt across racial or socioeconomic groups. There are some groups of folks whose income and family situation does not allow for them to make a change, even if they want to. And that's something that we're seeing both in the nature of our applicant pool, as well as those positions where people have said, you know what, I don't want to do this anymore. And it's not really they're quitting Brookline, it's that they're deciding to take a break, to take space. Nationally, over 20% have quit the workforce for the total eligible workforce individuals since May of 2021. And those are, the quit numbers are based on not due to retirements or layoffs. So these are people deciding to leave the workforce without a new job to go to. We have applicants who are ghosting our interviews. So they sign up for an interview slot and then they just do a no-show. And it's something that we haven't seen in a really long time. Sort of the opposite to, the bubble and the Great Recession, where people were looking for jobs and knocking at the door. Reposting of single jobs 2 and 3 times at a 2 or 3 times higher level in order to get candidates into the position. And then the shift in power for applicants over employers, where applicants are saying, well, I want to come to work for you, but do you have remote work? Do you have this? Do you have that? Do you have the other thing? And that, because there are more jobs than applicants, what we have is sort of a reversal of power. This is a picture I want to show you. It is courtesy of SHRM, which is the Society of Human Resource Management. Shows the quitters market, and this orange line that is way above anything else that has gone on since 2001 shows you that we are in a truly an outlier situation, as far as people just deciding, you know what, I want to be home. I want to be with my kids. I want to be with my parents, whatever the issue is. And that's what this looks like. This orange number is 2021 to date. We should be getting November numbers shortly, but that's what we have. And then just finally, these are our continuing activities. We're using the same tools that we had before, but having to reach out further to get people to apply for positions, and even just sign up for job opportunities. And from there, I will stop sharing my screen and turn it over to Lloyd, and can take questions whenever you're ready.
Sure. Good evening. My name is Lloyd Jolanu. I'm the Director of the Office of Diversity, Inclusion, and Community Relations, and also the Chief Diversity Officer for the town. As Ann mentioned, we had 16 new hires during the second quarter, which is actually double the amount of hires we had the first quarter of this year. The racial composition of the second quarter hires included one person identified as Black, representing 6% of the new hires, and one person identified as Hispanic, representing 6% of the new hires. And the remaining people were identified as white, representing 88% of the new hires. When comparing the second quarter hiring data with the first quarter data, we see a decreased percentage of Black hires from 38% to 6%, basically 1 for the second quarter and 3 for the first quarter. 100% increase in Hispanic hires, meaning that was 1 hire that we had in the second quarter versus none in the first quarter. And an increase of white hires from 62% to 88%.
Note that in both quarters, there weren't any new hires from any other racial category. Note that the persons identified as Black and Hispanic were both hired in non-management positions. Both were dispatch positions within the Public Health Safety Department. Of the hires, the number of hires that were identified as white, 5 were hired into mid-management positions. The number of BIPOC hires into middle management positions from the first quarter is consistent with the second quarter, and that no people of color were hired into management positions. Ann mentioned some of the things that we are doing to sort of increase our diversity, in particular in the applicant pool, but I'm going to share with you some other considerations that as a town we may want to consider. One of the first things is to consider instituting a tuition credit program for entry-level positions. 2, emphasizing in job announcement that the position may qualify for federal student loan forgiveness programs. Greater emphasis in creating outreach to low-income communities regarding job openings. And what I mean by that is actually going into public housing with handouts and stressing what jobs and stuff are available. I'm finding that folks don't readily look at the town board, and even with the networking, it's probably not enough. And I think more direct contact with folks would maybe expand our applicant pool as it relates to minority folks. For certain positions where appropriate, perhaps emphasizing skills and experience over education. I noticed a lot of our entry-level jobs, they do say high school diploma required. And I'm wondering if we're looking for just basic skills of reading, writing, and be able to do stuff, do they necessarily have to have a high school diploma? Strive to make compensation comparable to other municipalities and private companies. And then identifying and implementing strategies to increase less represented groups into the applicant pool. There was mention about the CDICR. In the past, we did have an employment diversity group that was run by Kelly Race. Since her departure, there was no one who felt they have the skill set to actually run that group. But I do think that maybe in the future, we actually have folks who have that type of skill set and apply for the CDICR, and that person probably can lead the group. It was really helpful. We did have all the departments coming there on a regular basis to give us an account of the hiring practices and the diversity. And it was effective as a way of actually making sure that we're actually doing the strategies that we're purporting that we're doing. So that's the end of mine. And so if you have any questions.
Well, I think there are going to be questions. Can I tell you, I've never been more glad that we have this quarterly update on our agenda than right now. I mean, the shift that Ann talks about in the overall market, but also the impact that we see in the numbers that Lloyd is sharing with us as well around diversity are just startling. I'm going to take a minute to soak this in, but I see Miriam has a hand up, and I know there are going to be other questions and comments from the board. Miriam.
Yeah. Hi, thank you guys for this. So I'm really interested in digging a little bit more into the recruitment strategy. I mean, where we get applicants is really important. You know, are we looking at the Black economic diversity groups out there, the NAACP? You know, how are we really actively recruiting applicants of color, and how can we do better? And then my follow-up question to that is, because I don't think you can separate retention from hiring, I would like to know too, how are we doing in retention? And you know, it's one thing to bring people in, that if you bring in someone and the only person of color in their department, they're not going to stay very long. So what is the rest of that story? How are we supporting existing hires and working on retention? But you know, it starts with good recruitment. So I'd like to hear more about that. And there are a lot of organizations out there to tap to help with that. So I'd like to know what we are doing, and if we're not doing it, why, and what we plan to do. That's a lot, and I'm going to stop talking now.
So I'll start with that. So HR has a staff of 7. Our recruiter as such is not just a recruiter. She does labor and employment, collective bargaining, investigations, and literally posts the jobs. We do, and she does our job description write-ups. So where we're given resources to advertise for particular sectors of interest, we will do that. We have not had the bandwidth to affirmatively reach out to you or the Asian groups or the faith groups specifically to say, okay, where can we advertise this? Where can we do this? And I'll say that's a bandwidth issue. COVID hasn't helped because we are doing all COVID all the time, and so we can't even assign backup resources to that. So I wish we were spending more time and effort on that. It is something I want to do more of. It's figuring out how to make that happen with the resources that we have.
Okay. Just a quick question. I want to go to, Mel, do you want to weigh in?
I was just going to say that we do advertise in a number of affinity groups depending on the particular position. So I don't know if Lloyd or Ann have some of those, but we do that frequently.
Yeah, we have a network. I mean, when I see a job advertising, I actually send it through my network, and a lot of the affinity groups get those emails. The trouble sometimes that we fall into is we establish these relationships and that person leaves and we don't have a relationship with that group anymore. So we have to reestablish it. And that is a frequent problem, but it's easily fixed. I mean, we make that contact again. We do reach out to the schools in particular for, like I said, positions and stuff that require, a bachelor's degree or something like that. We do send those to the schools. I also network with some of my other counterparts within the other municipalities to let them know that these are opportunities that exist. So to me, the networks that we have, our own private networks and your school networks, are really important. It's just how to reach those folks who don't necessarily use the internet and don't usually aren't aware that there are ways you can find out about employment opportunities that's hard to reach. And I do think this more of a boots on the ground approach may help with that.
Really quick, Ann, I just also wanted to point out that, remember, what we're looking at here in this quarter is a sample size of 16 hires, right? And that, it's helpful to consider this quarter as part of the overall trend, looking at the year we've had. So I just wanted to, in a future presentation, it might be helpful to show that as well. So I know it's easy to look at just these hires and the percentages based on these 16 hires, but remembering that there's a larger, bigger picture out there. Sorry, Ann, I cut you off.
That's okay. To Mel's point, part of our regular advertising strategy is we have a contract relationship with diversityjobs.com. So all those go out there, and that is a compilation of Black hiring, Latino hiring, LGBT hiring, disabled, veterans, you name it. They have that all pooled together, and so it goes out to those places. We also post the jobs at colleges and universities, and a variety, like I said, of sort of niche job boards that are out there and do use our networks. But like I said, it is a challenge to think of, how do we approach in the era of COVID, talking to, public housing folks or folks at a job center that might be either in town or in the area around either, Roxbury or wherever else that we might recruit.
Okay. Just a quick question to which I think you can give a quick answer, which is this issue of few to no applications for many positions. Is that consistent across pay scale, or are we seeing that happening more in the mid-level or in other places?
We're seeing it across jobs. I think it's harder because we're not getting folks to apply for our labor service jobs. And that's why you see 10 posts for Public Works, for example, filling the MEOs. and the jobs that require, physical effort, and where people are making a determination to go do something different, or to do it closer to home.
All right. Yeah, and there's a real challenge here in terms of us competing with the market out there as a municipality and all the challenges we face. But let's keep going. John.
Thank you, and thank you both to Ann and to Lloyd. So many questions here, but let me see if I can just narrow it down a tiny bit. I wonder if, first of all, if either or both of you would like to
John, just lost your audio, but it doesn't look like you're muted, but I'm not hearing you anymore. Try again. All right, let's circle back to John. Oh, there you go.
I think maybe I've got it fixed. Sorry about that. I'll rewind the tape here. Do either Ann or Lloyd or both want to respond to what Deborah Brown had to say earlier, which, quickly summing up, was why wasn't there a community engagement process for this ongoing work of examining the town's track record in terms of hiring?
I interpret our question differently, but I think I did answer it, that that typically we would have departments come to, and Ann was included with that, to the diverse employment diversity committee meeting on a regular basis, and where we actually the community had an opportunity to actually, ask questions and be part of that process and have an understanding of and actually strategizing with us. So I'm going to say to Deborah Brown that I definitely think that's something going forward we'll definitely put back together. And actually, if we need to be going further with the community engagement process, that's something that we would consider too.
And I think from my end, one of the things that we do is, we do the annual analytics to look at what our workforce looks like. And even though the subcommittee doesn't exist anymore, is I do share that information with Lloyd, and Lloyd also does his own sort of graphics on the employment sector for town employees that's out there on the webpage. This quarterly report is, yes, at the request of the select board. And, maybe we schedule something for after the new year to look at the year-to-year overall analytics for departments, to provide that longer lens for the last year, because we have that trends data over time as well.
May I ask another question, Mr. Vice Chair Raoul? I also want to say I have very high respect for our engagement coordinator, our engagement strategist, Carolina. But I wonder if it is part of her job description or mission, and maybe should it be part of her job description and mission to herself be engaged in this this challenge of spreading the word among all of the appropriate communities of availability and opportunities of jobs for the town of Brookline. And so that, in other words, it's not just what is our engagement strategy where community participation in government meetings or getting town hall to address needs, but also community engagement in terms of making people aware of town employment as a very valuable opportunity that they should hopefully will seriously consider. That's the question.
I mean, yeah. I mean, the short answer to that is yes. Part of her role is to help the departments and our office too to maximize the potential of us being able to reach those groups that that are underrepresented in our work pool. So the answer, yeah, John, I agree. I mean, that's something that's within our role.
And last question quickly, has this been on the agenda for the
All right, last thing we heard is the word agenda for thee. John, you still with us? All right, Bernard.
Yeah. First of all, I'd like to acknowledge the difficulty of hiring, and especially diversity hiring in these times. So, I hesitate to be critical, but I do have a couple questions. First of all, I admit that I tend to be more concerned with hiring of Black applicants than others, but I noticed that the hiring of Asian employees is way out of proportion to the percentages of Asian residents here in town. I wonder what I mean, that's sort of an anomaly, or is there something that explains that? And let me just throw out another question. I'd like you to sort of explain to me what your comment about we hire so few people over 40 meant. I guess I didn't understand that.
So I found it, just as far as the over 40 comment first, is that it was more along the line of the number of hires based on the types of jobs, because there is that age discrimination number of 40 is one of the things that stuck out to me, was that we only had hired 2 people over 40. Whether that's a good thing or not, I was marking that as something that that was interesting to see as far as demographics in the workforce, is to see that we've hired so many people under the age of 40 for these various positions across different roles, and then to have only 2 above 40. So it was just to remark on it, not to make any statement positive or negative about that. As far as the diversity in hiring and recruitment, it was something that I mentioned at the last quarterly report, that we did not have any hires of Asian background, and not sure why that's happening. I don't know if it's the nature of the positions themselves. And again, just noting that our recruitment right now is basically reactive and not proactive, just due to bandwidth issues.
Sounds like we're going to need to talk a little bit more about this at a future date. It might be good, as Ann mentioned, to have a continued conversation looking at the year-long data in the new year. And I'm very interested in as we sort of continue to think about what the issues are here, to talk more about some of the solutions that you proposed, including the tuition credit program, really promoting, the possibility of student loan forgiveness that's out there, and some other issues. This, as Bernard said, this is really challenging, and we're in a really challenging environment to compete right now for the folks that we'd like to see here, and we're going to have conversations about what it takes to compete, because we still need to fill these positions, and we still want to try to get the best possible folks to do that. With that said, this is also an opportunity. This is also an opportunity to with these open positions, to redouble and refocus our efforts on recruiting with an eye toward diversity and representation. And even as we look at the challenges, we should also be sort of focused on this as an opportunity too, when we have these openings. So, well, if there's nothing else, let's continue the conversation. I'll talk with Heather and Mel about trying to docket a conversation in the new year, so we can dig into this a little bit more and have that solutions focused conversation. So thank you, Ann. Thank you, Lloyd.
Thank you.
Appreciate your time. All right. Okay, so apologies to folks who are waiting on item number 9, annual license renewals. Let's go into that. Mel, would you like to tee this up for us?
Yes, thank you, Raul. We have 3 licenses that have been held over from our prior meetings. They are Sunset Cantina, which is at 916 Commonwealth Avenue, and it's a food vendor. Audi of Brookline, which is a Class 1 auto dealer at 308 Boylston Street, and Reef Kitchen at 374 Boylston Street, which is a food vendor. I'll just raise each one and maybe we can take the one up one at a time. The Sunset Cantina, the reason why we held this license was because there was an investigation going on by the Alcohol Beverage Control Commission relating to underage drinking. There was a hearing that was held last week. We were hoping that we might hear some results from the hearing, but there have been none yet. And so because the new year is coming up and we have an obligation to do something before December 31st, we should renew the license at this time. If there's anything that comes out from the ABCC that we feel is appropriate for the board to consider and potentially hold another hearing, we can do that. But at this time, we really see no other option as to renew the license for Sunset Cantina at this time.
Also, I believe this is a public hearing, so opening the public hearing on all of these items. But right now, let's focus on Sunset Cantina. I see someone being promoted here. And are there any questions or comments from the board right now? Oh, and it looks like Ora McGonigal is with Sunset Cantina, so we do have someone here from.
I'll just say I read the memo, Mel. I thought it was very helpful. Thank you.
Bernard?
Yeah, no, I just agree. It's an excellent memo. It really helped to put the issues in perspective.
So I think Mr. McGonigal is here to respond to any of your concerns or questions about the Sunset Cantina, or he may wish to just make a statement. I'm not sure.
Sure. Oren, you're welcome to unmute, and if you'd like to turn your video on as well.
Yeah.
There you go.
Yeah, you got me?
Got you.
How we doing, folks? Yeah, I got a notification earlier about coming on board and kind of just having a conversation with you about what went on there that evening. And I just wanted to give it kind of our perspective from the owner and where we are at as owners of restaurants in this environment. So basically, to start off, we own 7 restaurants around Massachusetts. We in 21 years, we've never had a violation in our history. And unfortunately, when we picked back up after COVID, we had a violation at the cantina, and we are extremely apologetic about that happening. We basically what happened was we were totally understaffed and we weren't ready for the reopening, and the actual volume of customer that we did get there, it was nowhere near the volume of customer we were seeing in Boston. The student business came back like really strong for us, and we just didn't have the people there to manage it, to put all our systems in place to control it regarding door safety, ID checking, tip training for all the staff that we hired right after we came back, and then like following up on who's there and are we asking the customer for ID, these kind of things. And unfortunately, that table was not asked for ID that night. And when the ABCC came in, they obviously went round, checked everyone, and found out that these guys had fake IDs on them. Just on a follow-up to that, I will say that the ABCC has been back twice with us, and we have had no violations. We now have active door security with ID checkers on the door. We have taken I want to say we've taken over 200 IDs since then. We're very aware of the area that we're in also and what the clientele is. It's a huge student market that we're in, so we are actively working on making sure that we don't get any more issues regarding that. So more staff, but I just listened to your previous agenda item there, and I think everyone in every industry is having issues with staffing right now. So I know that we're all competing for people, so I'll be probably competing against you guys with offers as well. So I just wanted to come on and explain who we are as a group. This is not something we are ever involved in. This is a first for us. The ABCC hearing was a first for us. We didn't have any lawyers there. Me and the other owner done it ourselves. We totally said, look, we want to fix this. We're going to try and fix it, and we want to be part of the community that you are all in charge of, and keep going forward and improving the cantina, which we do feel we have done. And we took it out of bankruptcy, and we feel like we've been able to add to the business.
Well, thank you. I appreciate just, being so earnest with us and with the, the ABCC as well, and really owning it and talking about what you're going to do going forward. So I appreciate that. I see John has a hand up. By the way, I'm told these are not public hearings, but I did want to still provide an opportunity if there's an interested member of the public to weigh in. You can still do that. John, go ahead.
Yes, echoing Raul's comment, yes, I appreciate your candor very much. Did I hear you say that you've taken some 200 IDs, and does that mean you have confiscated some 200 fake IDs?
Well, we've confiscated IDs that don't pass our checks. So that's either the scanner and then our visual on it. So it might be someone else's picture on the ID, let's say. So we, anytime the ABCC comes, or they will take them with them as well. So they will. So we just store them. It's a weird issue. It's a weird kind of area right now, that area, because of the quality of IDs that we're seeing. And I know that there was a pretty viral video across the street from us recently in another restaurant that the manager did take the ID, and the woman went live and on social media, and it became a big issue, and it ended up being a real ID. So it's a strange little world we're in now, but we're very comfortable with the ID checker we get. It was cost us about $2,500. It's a very, very good machine. So it is. So it's, the ABCC are very happy that we have it on board as well. So we're using that. We're using our own smarts. We're trying to keep everyone now is tip trained that works for us in there. So just trying to keep on top of it and keep hiring and hiring to make sure we can handle the load that we're getting.
Yeah, it sounds like you're, sort of under siege constantly from people who are trying to penetrate your defenses, in terms of fake IDs. And I really feel, I sympathize with your efforts to deal with it. I guess the only thing I would say is, given your knowledge of that this is something that your customer base, or at least your would-be customer base, is going to attempt all the time, I guess the obvious lesson from this experience is there's no excuse for not checking the IDs. I mean, being shorthanded is one thing, but there were people at a table, and all it would have taken is for somebody to ask them for their IDs.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I agree with you.
Thanks, John. Bernard.
Yeah. One of the other issues was a groping incident, and this is a bar near a college, and I know things get out of hand, but I'm wondering if you could just give us a sense of the type of security measures you take to sort of keep the crowd under control, not overly drunk, where situations like that happen.
So I'm not aware of what you're referencing.
Am I talking about another license, Mel?
I think that matter is still under police investigation, Bernard, but so I'm not sure that that's something that we want to talk about.
Never mind.
Okay.
I don't know anything about that.
Okay. I apologize, then. That was something that we.
Thank you.
Very well.
Okay. All right. So I think I see we have two other licenses, but why don't we go ahead and vote on this one? That way, Mr. McGonigal can go on his way. So you've been waiting around for a while for this. So I'm going to go ahead and, as recommended, move approval of this license. This is a renewal of the alcohol common victualler license for Sunset Cantina. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
And I say aye as well. Oren, good luck moving forward. Let us know what we can do to help you out.
Thank you very much.
All right, take care. All right, next up.
Thank
Mel?
you. I think we'd like to take up Reef Kitchen at this point. Reef Kitchen is the food vendor. That means that they prepare and food that is not consumed on premises. And in this case, the Reef Kitchen operates similar to a commissary where they're providing food and selling it on food trucks and elsewhere. This has been a similar use for many years, and so it took us a bit by surprise to hear some of the complaints because to our knowledge, we didn't have a lot of complaints, at least to the prior owner. But in this case, I think we identified some changes in the operation that were different and that were legitimate concerns of the neighborhood. You have folks from Reef here who I think can handle that. But I think in this case, because there really has not been conditions that are imposed in this license, we're proposing 4 separate conditions that would address some of the issues. And I'll just quickly read those off. That hours of operation be limited from 6 a.m. until 7 p.m. That all parking be in designated spots within the existing paid parking lot, and that the licensee be required to repaint parking areas as necessary. And that only one vehicle shall be parked in the rear in front of the overhead door. Number 3, that the licensee shall have its exhaust system inspected for proper operation, including noise and odor. And number 4, that a refrigerated truck will be used solely to transport food products and not for refrigeration or storage on site. And so representatives are here to address those at this time.
So welcome, Nick DeVoli. Are these conditions amenable to, are you amenable to these conditions? Do these work for you?
Yes, sir. We had a conversation earlier this morning and talked about some of the concerns and potential conditions that would be placed on the license, and understand and are happy to continue operating in Brookline, and if possible or attractive for the folks on the call, Reef Kitchens operates a number of mobile food locations across the U.S. We are by nature a parking management company, and this location, I understand, was previously occupied by a beloved mobile food operator, food vendor, and that did go out of business. I think it was Chick Chack or something to that nature. I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing it, but a lot of those folks that would have lost their jobs in the pandemic did come over and are working for us. We bought all the equipment that was in that kitchen, so we're happy to be a part of the community, and we're fully aware of what the conditions mean. We're going to get that hood system looked at so it's not making a sound. The health department had raised some concerns about the size of the dumpster and the recyclable area on the site. We've increased the size, we've increased the frequency for pickup to mitigate those concerns. But we're just happy to continue operating and keep people employed at the location.
Thank you. Questions or comments from the board? John.
Yeah, thank you for coming tonight. And sincerely welcome to Brookline. It's always good to, have businesses thrive in Brookline. But as you're here for a reason, there were some issues with the noise and other nuisances that were associated with your business. I just want to be sure that what's in front of us is something that you are agreeing to that is realistic given the nature of Reef. Because my understanding is people have used this phrase ghost kitchen. That Reef is all about, these refrigerator trucks. I mean, they have refrigeration, but they also basically serve as, remote and movable kitchens for, say, fast food restaurants. And so they do quite a heavy load of producing product from the truck for some remote location that will then serve the product. That's not the same as agreeing to restricting the use of the truck to just refrigeration during delivery of product that's produced like in the building. So are you agreeing to what is really in this? And is that what Reef actually does?
Yeah, so I appreciate the question. We are agreeing to precisely that. What this location is used as is a preparation kitchen. We refer to it as a PK. So at the preparation kitchen, bulk food is received, processed, cooked, and then sent out to our mobile operations, our mobile kitchens. The refrigerated unit that has been seen on site is not a mobile kitchen. It is a refrigerated unit that transfers food product from the preparation kitchen to an operational kitchen, a location, and an execution kitchen is what we call it. So this location has never been used to locate an execution kitchen or a food truck. It is just for that transportation. And to address the hours of operation concern, we cease cooking operations there. between 5 and 6 p.m. on a daily basis. So we're not operating late into the evening, as I think some folks have been concerned about previously.
Thank you. That helps me understand.
All right, anyone else? Okay, if there's nothing else, I'll go ahead and move approval. This is a renewal of the food vendor license for Reef Kitchen for 2022 with the conditions that were included in the memo we received from our town administrator, Mel Kleckner. All those in favor, Bernard. Bernard will come back to you. Miriam, I'm sorry, John, now I'm all over the place. John.
Aye.
All right, Miriam.
Aye.
Bernard? Aye. There we go. And I say aye as well. Thanks. Good luck. We will we'll operate under this new plan, and if need be, we'll have another conversation again. But I feel confident that that you're supportive of this plan, and I'm glad that you've been able to work with town staff to make it happen. So thank you very much.
Absolutely. Thank you. Have a good night, everyone.
Right. All right. Final license renewal is renewing the Audi dealership Class 1 secondhand motor vehicle license for 2022. Mel.
Sure. This one is a little more difficult because really the issue here is not that there are insufficient conditions. There are many conditions on this license that have evolved over the years. There's also a special permit that conditions the operation and many of the aspects of operation at this location. I think the complaint here has been that there have been violations over time, at times repeated violations of the same infractions, same license conditions. And there's a lot of frustration, I think reasonable frustration from the neighbors that they get resolved, but there's really no acknowledgement of the cumulative impact of these violations and, concern that the town is not taking them seriously enough and addressing them either at renewal or at other times. I think that's the issue. I think it's a legitimate concern. Audi can speak for themselves and they're here this evening. I think from the town's point of view, we understand that sometimes it's hard to deal with the town. There's different agencies that deal with different aspects. We do encourage the residents in particular to talk to Tiffany Souza, who is our licensing coordinator and this license is under our select board suite of licenses. And so we would like all of the complaints at least to be logged by Tiffany, and so that we don't miss them all. It's possible that a couple calls were made to police and a couple were made to building, for example, and sometimes we don't hear about those or we hear about those too late. And we'd like to make sure we document all of them at this time of year or at other times. But at this point, I really think it's up to Audi to address some of the concerns that have been raised and whether that's sufficient for the board to go forward or what other mechanisms you'd like to compel compliance at this location.
Great. So we'll hear from the Audi team first. We also have a member of the public that's asked to speak on this, which we'll allow, and then we'll hear from the board.
Thanks, Mr. Chair. For the record, my name is Bob Allen. I have a law practice at 300 Washington Street here in Brookline Village. I have Tim Viego with me, who's the general manager of Audi Brookline. I actually have to take issue with what the town administrator just said. I've been involved with this client since they took over which was a Volkswagen dealership, you may remember. And I will admit that much of what the town administrator spoke about was happening before the new building went in. There was parking going on. It was a very difficult situation there. They were coming in as a busier operation than what was there before. There was some parking on the sidewalks. There was some work being done in the parking area. And really that's what drove Mr. Chambers and the Audi to relook at the dealership. Before we relooked at the dealership, we had a number of neighborhood meetings. A lot of the issues came out, and we actually designed a plan that we thought would be really helpful, which included a garage, which was connected on. Picture where you'd see the dealership now with a garage next to it. But the neighborhood expressed a lot of concern about the garage. It's going to block my view. It's going to box me in a little bit, create a wall. So Herb Chambers and his team backed off the garage and just built the dealership that you see there today, but did so in a way that kind of prevents a lot of the activity from happening in the parking lot. And since that time, there's been one complaint, right? And even, Mr. Van Scoyoc brought up last time about, traffic issues, other things. I checked with the police. There's been zero that has been recorded that can come back to the dealership, So I believe that the biggest issue that has caused what you're hearing tonight related to lifts, right? Just by way of, I might have mentioned this before, we had an outside company come in, said, you can put these lifts in, you have to go through the state elevator permit, you pay a certain fee there, you put them in, and they went about and did that, but Brookline has a special permit requirement for design review if the property's on Route 9. So we were going through to legalize that after the fact. But we did pay, we paid to have them installed, we paid the state. And then when the building commission came in, we went through the zoning process. After we heard what this board heard last week, I went back to the ownership, their initiative, not mine, saying, hey guys, let's just pull these lifts. Yes, we would love to have additional vehicles. This board is aware. I listened to your COVID conversation. One of the things that has taken off is car ownership, right? People are buying used cars, people are buying new cars. So there is a need to have some additional inventory there. And that's frankly what drove it. But it was caused a lot of ire to the neighborhood. The neighborhood felt that we installed sort of arrogantly. And we decided to just back off. These lifts have been allowed on Route 9 in other areas, but we backed off, we withdrew. I hope you got a copy of my withdrawal letter. So we withdrew it. We're going to have them removed. We're working with the building commissioner. We're trying to find the contractor to find his time to get them out, but we promised the building commissioner would have them out of there by the end of February. And we will do that. And we're hoping that this is a step in the right direction. And should we, have future work, we will do what we did the first time around and go to the neighborhood. And, I like to think that I have a pretty good track record in this town of meeting with neighbors, talking to neighbors, and trying to make sure there's a process. And the one thing the town administrator may remember is, during 2018, right before the construction, I was meeting quarterly with the captain of the Brookline Police. We were meeting on site. We were going over everything. And lately, I've been meeting with Lieutenant Hayes from the Brookline Police, asking him what's any issues. And, the one thing I have to point to, we have 16 conditions, all but one. There was one, a ding doctor came in and did work. Tim will talk about that if he wants, but that was a violation. But otherwise, that was the only violation. These 16 conditions have been in since 1984. We've complied by them. And, every town department has who we've talked to, who we've met with, is supporting this renewal. And if I may, Mr. Chair, could I just introduce you to Tim Viega? Let him tell you what he believes his relationship is with the abutters.
Good evening, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, everybody. Like I said, we want to abide by every rules and regulations that you guys set forth. And we've met with Wendy McMullen. There was an issue, Wendy McMuller, I think. There was an issue on Walnut Street where we had some test drives that were being just a little bit on the fast side, and she wasn't too happy about that. And she called me on my cell a few times. We shared some texts together, and we corrected the behavior very quickly. And she actually sent me an email saying, "Thank you very much for being attentive to that." And I said, "Wendy, anytime, call me, text me. We want to be safe and follow all the rules." So we met with the town administrator in the police department and the fire department just about 10 days ago, I would say, right, Bob? And we had a good, sit down with everyone, and, we want to play by the rules. So, whatever we can do, to just be, adhering to all the processes, that's what we would like to do. We don't want to, cause any stress for anybody or make any pain on anybody's end. Thank you.
All right, thank you. So Richard Morris has asked to speak on this. Let's go ahead and promote Richard, hear from him, and then we'll see if anybody on the board wants to weigh in. Okay, here we go. Richard, if you can unmute, and if you'd like to turn your video on, that's up to you.
Yeah, I do. Okay.
We got you.
Sorry, hold on a second.
Okay.
So the better lighting here. So my name is Richard Moore. I'm a 20-year resident at 20 East Milton Road. I'm a registered architect in the state of Massachusetts, and I'm a butter of Audi. I reside right behind their front yard. And excuse me if I reiterate some things I've already mentioned, but let me begin with, at the last board meeting, it was, their license was postponed due to the recommendation of the town administrator, Melvin Kleckner, in order to fact find complaints that the neighbors had been filing over the last 4 years, and to await the outcome of the Audi's Board of Appeals case recommended by Chair Heather Hamilton. This case had to do with legal installation of 16 car stackers in front yard, and I'll emphasize illegal. And since that meeting, the abutters on East Milton Road have sent 29 documents of complaints filed with Brookline Building and Health Departments to Devon Fields, the Town Administration Office. The many calls to Brookline Police cannot be documented or traced, although there had been many calls. These 29 other documents of complaints in the form of health inspection notices, emails to the building commissioner, Daniel Bennett, and dated photographs and videos all pertain to the violations of their 2014 special permit number 7, no work in the front yard. The same can be traced through Brookline's various departments. Now, this is in opposition to what Bob Allen claims of only one complaint. So is he saying we're making this up? We made up these videos of work being done in the front yard. We made up the 3 complaints to the health department. We made up the emails that sent to the building commissioner. Or is his research not complete? Or is it biased, since he's obviously counsel to Brookline Audi and being paid by them? I mean, he makes all these claims, but he really doesn't know all. We live behind Audi and we suffer from their violations of their operation permits. Now, on the matter of the Board of Appeals hearing for car stackers, as you know, that was withdrawn at the last minute. There was much opposition by the neighbors and abutters to these stackers in the legal manner that they were installed. And I sent photographs and documents to the BOA and to the select board that oppose these stackers and the evidence of the legal installation procedures. Now, they're claiming it's an innocent thing, it's an elevator license, but in reality, you need a building permit to install these car stackers.
You have 30 seconds.
Okay, and in closing, we the neighbors and the butters do not want these violations by Brookline to continue, and they will continue in spite of what Bob Allen claims. And we would like to see a corrective action when they do reoccur. We're asking from the select board at a minimum that their license be, if their license is renewed, that there be a fine for future violations with corrective action, and a liaison person for the town of Brookline to record any future complaints by neighbors and butters. It is clear that the Brookline Police, Brookline Building, and Brookline Health Departments do not have a system in place that records complaints of these matters to the select board. The end result is Audi continues these violations with impotence. Now, I do understand from what Melvin stated that Tiffany is the contact person, and we're glad to hear that. So I thank you for your time.
Okay, thank you. Members of the board? All right. Here. Yep, Bernard. Oh, you're muted.
All right, muted myself because I was sneezing. Let me just ask a question of Mel. So the stackers were being used to store cars on Brookline in Brookline. Do we lose personal property tax revenue because the stackers are no longer there? I mean, this is unrelated to the issue before us, but I just was curious as to, how that's going to affect our revenues. Not a huge amount.
I don't know.
I don't think so.
I'm not sure. I don't know what revenue. Are you referring to excise tax?
Yeah. I mean, the cars are in Brookline. It's we should be collecting taxes for that. If they're being stored elsewhere, we don't get that tax. Again, not related to this issue, but it's something that I'm curious about.
I don't know the answer yet.
Any other questions or comments from the board? All right, hearing none. I do think when issues like this come up, I think it's really important that we hear from members of the community, and these are also opportunities for us to have a closer eye on businesses within Brookline. I appreciate Tim, your comments in particular about being open to hearing from community members. Obviously, I think it's pretty obvious that there are at least some community members. We heard from one today, but others last week who haven't felt heard in that way. And there's at a minimum a need to make sure that improvements are made between relations between the Audi dealership and the neighbors in the community there. And that includes, Wendy's not so close to exactly what dealership is. So that includes the wider community because of the test drives and all that kind of stuff, not just immediate abutters, but folks even several blocks away. So I hope you'll take that to heart. And this is obviously one that we'll be watching closely in the new year.
Thank you.
All right.
Rob. Thank you.
Well, thank you. Yeah. All right. Hearing no other comment or question, let's go ahead and see where this goes. This is the renewal of the Audi dealership Class 1 secondhand motor vehicle license for 2022. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Vice Chair votes aye. Thank you all.
Thank you all. Appreciate your time.
Okay, you too.
Thank you.
All right. So we have 2 items left. Let's get it done, folks. We've got first the Advisory Council on Public Health membership update. And who are we hearing from on this, Mel?
No one actually. There's a memo in your packet from the chair who was unable to make it. But that is just kind of describing the proposed changes that Pat Maloney, and the rest of the board have put together for your review and potential approval this evening.
Okay. So my understanding from our memo is that there are 2 openings, and that Pat Marr, the chair of the Advisory Council on Public Health, is proposing to have Dr. Natalia Linos, currently an affiliate member, become a voting member, and that there's 1 remaining seat that had been held open. We hope to fill with someone with experience in environmental health. Having spoken with Pat Maloney about this, they're in the process of considering potential candidates, have none in mind at this time. So the only action that we have before us then is to approve this change for Dr. Natalia Linos from an affiliate member to a voting member. Any questions, or let me know if I missed anything? Miriam.
Yeah, I'm just gonna vouch for Natalia Linos. She's amazing. She's currently filling Mary Bassett's post as the executive director for the FXB Center at the Harvard School, T.H. Chan School of Public Health. She's eminently qualified for this position, and a really wonderful person. So she has my full support.
Thank you. I forgot to mention that Dr. Peter Moyer's term has ended this year because he's also currently the medical director of the health department. Dr. Morrow would like to keep him on as an affiliate member. So Dr. Moyer is an affiliate member, and then Dr. Natalia Linos as a voting member. John.
Just want to second what Miriam said. I've had the pleasure of watching a few of the Advisory Council on Public Health meetings where Dr. Linos was present, and as people said, not as a voting member, but as a fully participating member with many, many important contributions to discussions that the council was having. She's going to be a real welcome addition to the board, and a worthy successor to Peter Moyer, who, by the way, has been a terrific part of that board, of that council, excuse me.
It's been a really effective body, and as we've been, trying to figure out collectively how we respond, in particular to this pandemic, but other issues as well. Okay. Well, why don't we go ahead and vote on this? These are the vote on the changes that we saw in the memo from Pat Marr, the Advisory Council on Public Health Chair. All those in favor? Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
And I'll say aye as well. All right, great. One more item of business, appointments, and in a number of cases, reappointments to boards and commissions. First, we have the SWAC, the Solid Waste Advisory Committee, and the recommendation that we have before us is to appoint Caitlin Robbins, who we interviewed recently, for a term expiring in 2023, but also to reappoint other members for various terms, including John Dempsey, Dean Cody, Kathleen O'Connell, Susan Ritling, Clint Richmond, and Mary Litterist. Any questions before I move approval? Okay. So moving approval of all of those names for appointment and reappointment. All those in favor, Bernard? And you're muted.
Sorry. Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
Aye for me as well. Okay, and then our last order of business, the ZBA, the Zoning Board of Appeals. We have two votes for reappointment, and there is Lark Palermo and Paul Bell, both for terms expiring in 2024. Any questions about those reappointments? Okay, hearing none, moving favorable action on those reappointments. Bernard?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Miriam?
Aye.
And I'll say aye as well. All right, that is the end of our agenda, unless I'm missing something. Bernard, please.
Hey, Miriam, I really feel bad. I mean, you look like you are sick, and I think that should tell people that they do not want to get COVID, even if they are fully vaccinated. Hope you get well.
Thanks, Bernard. I will be going to bed pretty much as soon as I leave this meeting.
So let's get off quickly.
Absolutely. Yeah. So folks, our next meeting is going to be, the next meeting of the select board will be January 11th, 2021. Whoa. So we're going on hiatus for just a little bit. We'll give Miriam a chance to take a breather and wish her well. But just to say, happy continued holidays for everyone out there, and wishing you all a happy new year as well. Bernard.
Yeah, I didn't realize that our next meeting was so late into the next year. So I want to just mention that you should hold the date, January 17, Martin Luther King Day, when we will have our annual Martin Luther King celebration event. This year's event will be, unfortunately, a virtual event. We did it last year and it was fairly successful. And we need to do it this year because, well, everyone knows why. Our main speaker is going to be Dr. Robert Tsai from Boston University, speaking on voting issues, which are very timely these days. So anyway, hold the date, and we'll have more information at our next meeting on January 11th.
Thank you very much. And I'm also told this is Corbin Riddell's last day, at least for us anyway, at Brookline Interactive Group. If you know Corbin, you've seen him out there, in these streets, and also behind what you see just as BIG. on the screen. And so thank you, Corbin, for all you've done and what Big's done for us throughout all of this and even before, and wishing you well on your future endeavors. So thank you. And everybody, we'll see you in the new year.
See you in the new year.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Happy New Year.
New year.
Happy New Year.